After the two long-haul races in America and Brazil, the World Championship makes its European debut here on the superb Imola circuit for the San-Marino Grand-Prix. And in a situation where every World Championship point counts this season, the reigning champion, Ayrton Senna, starts at Imola with a commanding lead of 11 points, having won at Phoenix and Interlagos in the brand new McLaren with its equally new Honda V12 engine.
Our car this year is a lot better than our previous car, the V10 from 1990. The engineers, technicians made some radical changes on the car concept, which were fundamental for solving some of the critical problems we had with our previous car. We had this feeling immediately when we first tested the car in Portugal before Phoenix, and it proved to be correct that the car is a lot better than a year ago.
But Britain's hope for the #1 spot, Nigel Mansell, has yet to score after retiring from the first two races. He's been having an exciting time during practice at Imola, but he's happy to be back with the Williams team.
I don't have to worry about anything now, Murray. I mean, it's so different. I mean, even the relationship with Ricciardo, it's no problem if he's quicker or he beats me or whatever, because, I know how quick I can go, and I'm pretty sure the team do as well. What we've got to do is work together to get the best package together, and then when my reliability comes, or we have our little turn of luck, shall we say, we'll fly.
It may be the San-Marino Grand Prix, but Imola is in Italy, and Italy means Ferrari. Ferrari means Alain Prost in his second year with the Maranello team, who disappointed their fans with a poor performance in Brazil. But since then, they've made major changes, and Prost is much happier with the revised car. Benetton have got an entirely new car, designed by John Barnard, with a more powerful revised Ford V8 engine for 3 times world champion Brazilian Nelson Piquet and his countryman Roberto Moreno. And one of the prettiest cars at Imola is the all-new Brabham Yamaha. But the two Britons, Martin Brundle and Mark Blundell, have still got a lot of work to do.
In northern Italy, and Imola, the venue for round 3 of the Formula-1 World Championship. The teams making their way across Europe from various points. Renault arrived to resume their challenge. What encouragement a win would be. Their partners, Williams, having declared their title ambitions, had 14 races to make an impression. They had a great package, and it still hadn't been enough so far. World champions for McLaren and Williams, Niki Lauda and Keke Rosberg in memory lane. And the Brazilian connection, Emerson Fittipaldi, Ayrton Senna's boyhood idol, with a few words of encouragement.
Well, I'm very pleased, very happy to see all my friends. I think it's great, and I have a good feeling, and so nice to see people that I work together, race against, and beautiful feeling.
There were new models on parade at Imola, the long-awaited Benetton, admired by their former driver, Alessandro Nannini. Nannini out of racing since that terrible helicopter accident last year that severely injured his right arm. Footwork were hoping that the A11C would earn them points. Michele Alboreto had an unfortunate introduction to his. A testing crash ruined any chance of it being ready for San-Marino. So Alex Caffey debuted the new car.
Michele, we've seen you limping around the paddock. You're obviously in pain still.
Maybe because I'm getting old. Quite painful at the moment, but I am happy to be here anyway, even because I must use the old car. But I think every lap that we made with this Porsche engine can improve our performance, so I think I'm here for make my job.
Will you be driving in the race, do you think?
Yes, I would like, but I don't think it's possible to qualify the old car. And unfortunately, we have only one new car, so we try to qualify that one. And Alex is in the better conditions, so he's right, and he drives the new car.
Showing off their new BT60Y, Brabham, looking for an improvement in fortunes, a team which had the essential elements, but found success elusive. AGS, under new management, introduced Fabrizio Barbazza in place of Stefan Johansson. The Italian, another recruit from Formula 3000. Formula 1 Supremo Bernie Eccleston with the boss of Formula 1's most famous team, Cesare Fiorio.
We think we have made quite a big improvement from Sao Paulo to now, because we have a new front suspension, we have new aerodynamics, and also a good increase in the power of the engine. But we don't know whether this will be enough or not, because Williams and McLaren seem to be very, very fast, and especially Williams, I think this year is doing a fantastic work.
This is Italy. Do you feel as if you're on trial?
Well, of course, here in Italy there is a lot of pressure. There will be, 200,000 people around the circuit, and many of these will be for Ferrari, so we hope to do well. Otherwise we must go out from the back door.
Indeed, great demands on Ferrari to do well on home ground, but Prost in trouble during Friday's practice, and then things hotting up for Alesi during qualifying in the afternoon. It was Prost that set the Tifosi Pulse racing with the fastest time of the session. Things looking up for Ferrari, it seemed. Cesare Fiorio certainly thought so, until the Williams Renault of Riccardo Patrese went out and immediately bettered Prost's time on the track where he won the year before. The Williams of Nigel Mansell found Barbazza's AGS a hazard, and he was unable to improve on fourth. It left Ayrton Senna to repeat his Brazilian performance and set the quickest time of the day, from third to first, beating both Patrese and Prost.
To be honest, today we had some problems. I mean, not performance problem, but it's difficult to know what's going on Saturday and then Sunday morning. We have done a lot of tests here, so we know more or less that the car, even with fuel, is working well, and we should not have a surprise on this level. In terms of reliability, we must see and work again, because we don't have a big problem, but we have small problems, and that's I would say normal, because we have done a lot of work in the last month, and we must prepare for it a little bit. Even if I suppose that this day, today, should be the worst.
Mika Hakkinen of Lotus in his qualifying routine. He'd made a good start to his Grand Prix career, an unflappable, resolute Finn steeling himself for the test ahead. And he needed all his resolve on the Saturday as the rain tippled down. Nobody could improve their time. Some didn't bother to go out. Those that did had trouble, like Nigel Mansell. There's one man who revels in wet conditions, Satoru Nakajima. He was fourth quickest in the session, better even than Ayrton Senna.
And here's a man who obviously has that question of weather very much on his mind, because Ayrton Senna is virtually the first person to take to the circuit, out at the beginning and setting himself up for what looks like being a flying lap.
Well, Senna came onto the start-finish line, the tail of his McLaren Honda stepped out a little bit, so this is obviously a major qualifying attempt. Of course, the weather being a little bit unsure right now, we expect to see other people come out very shortly. Whatever Senna does, others will follow. But Senna on his first run down into the Tosa hairpin bend. That's that slow second gear uphill corner at the end of the straight. Senna now accelerating up fourth gear, fifth gear. And this wonderful, it's a double apex left-hand corner, running out wide over that curb, then back in for the second part of that corner, then down into another tight and slow right-left chicane that leads to the Acqua Minerale corner. Fourth gear, uphill, double apex corner that leads on then again uphill to yet another chicane. The green flag's out now. I think that indicates that either there's slow traffic around or that the track is clear, with concern being that a few spots of rain that were falling. That is a warning to say the track is clear. But Senna with a fair bit of traffic to contend with. Not the most ideal lap for Senna. Everybody, of course, wanting to be out as soon as possible to ensure that they get a clear lap and the track is not wet. And now he's just about to complete that lap. Senna back onto the pit straight. Again, well over the curb, sliding around quite a lot. Let's see what the time is. Well, already Ayrton Senna's gone 0.6 of a lap, 0.6 of a second quicker than his pole position last year. That was a 1:22.646.
As ever, it's all go in the pit lane at Imola, But this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more to a Formula-1 team than you'd think. Jonathan Palmer.
This is one of the 2 Tyrrell cars that are being raced this season. Let's consider just how many people it takes to put them on the grid. Well, clearly, there are the drivers, Stefano Modena and Satoru Nakajima, who started the year so well with 4th and 5th places at Phoenix. None was more delighted than team founder Ken Tyrrell, who masterminded 3 World Championship victories for Jackie Stewart. Now it's his son Bob who's taken over as managing director. Racing teams are all about engineering, and this area is headed by Harvey Postlethwaite, the engineering director who oversees the 8 designers who are continually working on the next new car. Its shape is formed by the 2 model makers, prior to extensive wind tunnel evolution by 4 aerodynamicists. Manufacture then commences with 15 in the composites department, another 6 in the machine shop, and 4 fabricators, largely just making the suspension. Complex wiring demands 2 electricians. The gearbox is assembled by 3 more specialist mechanics, and the engine is prepared by Honda technicians both here and in Japan. Final assembly of all the components is handled by a team of 5 more mechanics. Now the completed cars must be transported around the world, and the 3 transporters are manned by 5 truckies. Testing begins with 3 dedicated test team mechanics. Meanwhile, 3 in the marketing department are finalising and supporting the sponsor lineup, whose budget is managed by 4 accountants.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
Administrative and other staff comprise another 10 or so people. And finally, the bit you see, the cars running at a Grand Prix weekend, can be considered. Here, the 2 race engineers establish just what work the 12 race mechanics must do, and it is the team manager who controls this tip of the iceberg. So there we are, over 100 hard-working individuals, all to enable these 2 to go motor racing.
Blanc sur la piste de circuit d'Imola, c'est un drapeau canadien qui avait été peint ici par les tifosi en 1983 pour Gilles Villeneuve, un hommage à Gilles Villeneuve. Et nous allons maintenant avancer sur la grille de départ, la pole position. Ayrton Senna, il n'est pas arrivé, il continue de tourner sur les circuits, sur les tifosi qui sont venus très nombreux, en général plus de 100 000 personnes pour assister à ce Grand Prix d'Imola. Mais l'information, attention, il pleut de plus en plus, alors que l'on retrouve Patrick Tambay devant la position d'Alain Prost. Alain Prost n'est toujours pas arrivé non plus. On va continuer un petit peu, Vincent Régnier, pour aller promener sur cette grille de départ et arriver sur une Ferrari qui est déjà en place sur la 4e ligne de la grille de départ. Vous voyez pour l'instant que les voitures de tête ne sont pas encore arrivées, qu'elles continuent de tourner. Il pleut maintenant énormément, on peut dire, ça y est, la piste est mouillée. Et on s'approche de la Ferrari de Jean Alesi, sur laquelle les mécaniciens sont en train de travailler. Vous voyez, les parapluies sont de sortie aujourd'hui, bien évidemment, pour éviter que l'intérieur du cockpit des pilotes ne soit trop mouillé. Une Ferrari qui a changé par rapport au dernier Grand Prix. Vous voyez, l'intérieur, Alesi, évidemment, s'est enfui, il est allé se réfugier dans un coin bien tranquille pour pouvoir se concentrer. Vous pensez bien que tous les tifosi ont l'œil sur eux. On va, Vincent, avancer encore un petit peu, enfin plutôt reculer sur la grille de départ pour aller en 5e ligne, voir un autre moteur Ferrari, parce qu'il n'y a pas que les Ferrari qui ont des moteurs Ferrari en Formule 1 cette année. Il y a aussi les Minardi, avec ici Pierluigi Martini, qui bénéficie lui aussi du V12 Ferrari, et qui, pour la première fois, il avait un petit peu déçu jusqu'à présent aux 2 premiers Grands Prix. Bien là, pas du tout. Il a réussi des très bons temps pour se hisser ainsi à la 4e ligne, à la 5e ligne de la grille de départ. Pierluigi Martini, donc pilote italien, alors que Patrick Tambay m'a rejoint. Patrick, il faut parler de ces Minardi avec le moteur Ferrari pour expliquer tout simplement pourquoi ces voitures ne vont pas aussi vite que les Ferrari alors qu'elles ont le même moteur.
C'est bénéficie ici d'une nouvelle évolution du moteur. Il est évident qu'ils n'auront pas les mêmes développements. Et il y a une très très grosse modification, notamment au niveau des fonds plats et de la portive postérieure de la voiture. L'extracteur a été refait et modifié, la voiture s'en est trouvée transformée. Ici, ils ont fait de très très bons essais.
Mais d'accord, mais pourquoi ne vont-elles pas aussi vite que les Ferrari? Est-ce que c'est un problème pour une écurie d'avoir un moteur aussi prestigieux? Est-ce que c'est un problème pour les Minardi d'avoir le moteur Ferrari? Je sais que ça entraîne un surcoût de coûts de production notamment. Quel est le problème au niveau des ingénieurs et des techniciens qui travaillent chez Minardi?
Le budget Ferrari de location des moteurs à Ferrari pour Minardi représente 8 millions de dollars. Et pour eux, c'est une très très grosse partie du budget de fonctionnement. Ils n'ont pas les mêmes budgets d'ensemble. Et donc, c'est très difficile pour eux de pouvoir faire les développements qu'ils souhaiteraient faire. Et ils viennent d'engager un aérodynamicien maintenant, un Français qui vient de Toulouse, la même école qui a vu naître Migeot et Durand, et ils vont faire certainement des progrès de ce côté-là.
Voilà, on regarde rapidement les pneus de la Minardi qui sont donc sous couverture chauffante maintenant. Probablement, les voitures vont s'élancer en pneus pluie parce que vraiment maintenant, la piste est mouillée. Et donc tout change par rapport à ce matin au warm-up sur une piste parfaitement sèche avec un temps magnifique. Tout va donc être changé. Course encore plus spectaculaire avec probablement quand même un lot de surprises. C'est un petit peu souvent la loterie lorsqu'il pleut. Voilà, donc gros plan sur Martigny. On va continuer tout à l'heure à vous faire découvrir le reste de la grille de départ. On ira voir Senna, on ira voir Prost. Mais tout de suite, vous savez qu'à chaque Grand Prix, nous avons coutume maintenant de vous apporter un petit éclairage médical sur la spécificité du circuit. Ici, Imola, ce sont de très très difficiles freinages.
In Italy, well, they couldn't be worse. A downpour at Imola, but in position, I am sure, are James Hunt and Murray Walker.
Well, you spotted it, Steve, and this is the big question right now. On Friday, it was bitterly cold at Imola. Yesterday, Saturday, it poured with rain when we got up and looked out of our hotel bedroom windows this morning. Bright blue sky, sunshine, all good for a fine race. But at 1300 hours Italian time, we started to get some rain spots. Then 40 minutes later, lightning and thunder, and you can see the situation now. I can tell you that all the cars are on the grid with dry condition tyres, that is to say slick treaded tyres with no tread pattern on them, and there seems little doubt to me that this will be declared a wet race, in which case the cars will be starting on wet condition tyres. You can see there Ayrton Senna, confirmation that he's 11 points as a result of 2 wins ahead of Alain Prost in the World Championship. And in third position equal, Riccardo Patrese and Nelson Piquet. Nigel Mansell, driving for Williams, has yet to score. He's had gearbox problems this morning with the Williams, as has Riccardo Patrese. That has been the team's Achilles heel this year. But Frank Williams seemed to be pretty confident that they had overcome the half-hour practice problem today. So this race is going to run for 61 laps, and it's a long, hard race. It's a difficult course to set the car up for and a very abrasive surface.
Yes, and this rain has really thrown the cat among the pigeons for the teams because whilst it's raining, and raining quite hard at the moment, there's plenty of blue sky around and it looks very much as if this is just a shower. It's the first rain we've had today. It's been dry all day, and in fact it was dry 15 minutes ago when all the cars went out onto the grid. Now, we're looking at car with wet tyres sitting around it. With the wet and dry race situation, there's a rule here that a race is declared a wet race or a dry race depending on what the majority of cars on the grid are starting on, i.e. whether they're starting on the slick, dry weather tyres or whether they're starting on wet. Now, it seems fairly certain that although a lot of people there, for instance, the Ferrari you're looking at, is still sitting on its dry tyres, but the wets are sitting beside it. For sure they'll change it. Nobody is going to start in these conditions like that, and therefore more than 50% of the field, I'm confident, will have to start on wets. And that means that if the conditions change, the race does not get stopped. The teams are left to their own devices to come in and change tyres as and when they please. Whereas, if it was damp weather and it was declared a dry race, if you then get a downpour, the race is stopped, and so that everybody comes in and changes tyres that way. This way, as we get a wet race, we are liable to carry on right through to the bitter end.
Well, you probably saw a hideous gap by somebody on your screen caption there, because they had Martin Donnelly starting in the San-Marino Grand Prix, and I think it was 25th position. It is, in fact, of course, Mika Hakkinen, the brilliant young Finnish driver, who has done so well, and Julian Bailey, his teammate, is last on the grid, both of them in Lotuses, and it's the first time this year that both Lotus cars will have started a Grand Prix, because Julian Bailey, for a variety of reasons, was unable to qualify at Phoenix and Brazil. Talking of Brazil, there he is, Mr. Brazil himself, Ayrton Senna, twice the world champion, including 1990, pole position for the 55th time, He won here at San-Marino, at Imola, in 1988 and 1989, and he was second fastest in the warm-up this morning to his teammate Gerhard Berger.
Now, I know a lot of people with British interests at home will be waiting for some results from Nigel Mansell, and of course he's promised a lot this year already with the new Williams, which is clearly a very competitive and fast car. There's Patrese, who's on the front row of the grid. He won this race last year, Mansell's Williams teammate. And of course, problems with their new semi-automatic gearbox have afflicted the team so far, and in particular on Nigel Mansell's car. Well, if the problems are mechanical, the wet weather may well be of help to the Williams team and to their reliability with the gearbox, because of course the cars get a lot less strain on a damp track, and that ups the mechanical reliability enormously. So this may well help the Williams team if they haven't got that gearbox 100% sorted yet, and clearly they haven't got it 100% right, because both cars had problems with it this morning.
Alain Prost, third on the grid in the semi-automatic gearbox Ferrari. He was judged by a lot of experts today to be the only person who had put up a truly honest time in the half-hour practice this morning of the top three, because Berger went out in the spare car, was 1.4 seconds faster than Senna, and Berger undoubtedly had virtually empty petrol tank. So Prost, in terms of setup, is looking in good shape for the race. Incidentally, you've just seen on your television screen something that I have yet to see in 1991, and that's the steering wheel of a Williams, because as soon as the car stops, the steering wheel is taken off. This is the Ferrari steering wheel of Alain Prost. But Williams are very security-minded, especially about the gear change operating mechanism for their semi-automatic gearbox, and that's the first time I've seen a Williams steering wheel this year. So, Alain Prost, there is the man who has won more Grand Prix in the history of the World Championship than anyone else, carrying the famous number 27 with 44 wins. Nigel Mansell, 16 victories, equaling those of Sterling Moss. And here he is the lead Williams driver on the grid in fourth position, and the new Renault engine, the RS3, is now believed to be producing just as much horsepower as the V12 Honda and the V12 Ferrari. It's a V10, of course, the Renault, and we're moving across to Gerhard Berger, the Austrian, who has yet to win for McLaren. He was, as I said earlier on, fastest by nearly 1.5 seconds in the warm-up this morning, starting fifth on the grid with a lot to do. Berger led the San-Marino Grand Prix last year for the majority of the distance until he got an engine misfire and was caught and passed by Riccardo Patrese, who probably lives nearer to the circuit than anybody else, with the possible exception of Pierluigi Martini, who lives in Ravenna. And so now you look at the Marlboro without you look at the McLaren Honda without the engine cover of Gerhard Berger. And those are the lights that are going to start the race. The green will come on, and then the rule is that in less than 7 seconds, the green light has to come on. While you're looking at the grid on your monitors, I look out of the commentary box window, and I can see that a lot of the cars, but by no means all of them, have got wet weather tyres on now. So it is going to be very interesting indeed to see, after James has explained that whether or not it is a wet race is in fact decided by the entrants and what they fit. That's Cesare Fiorio, the fabled Ferrari team manager, alleged not to be getting on very well with Alain Prost these days. And you can see for yourselves that the rain is beating on the surface of this track. Now, very quickly, when they leave the grid, they go up to the Tamburello. That's a sixth gear, 190 miles an hour corner, and that was where Gerhard Berger came off so violently the year before last in his Ferrari. Up to 200 miles an hour, or they were doing that in the dry conditions that we had during practice on Friday. Down into second gear for Tosa, the very acute left-hander, and then they climb up to the Piratella. You're looking at Gerhard Berger, fifth position on the grid. Behind him, excellent, Stefano Modena, the ex-kart world champion,
driving the Tyrrell Honda with the V10 engine, that is Alain Prost. And then behind Modena, 7th on the grid, is Jean Alesi in the second Ferrari, and you're looking at Alain Prost's Ferrari now. And the V12s, the V10s, and the V8 Ford in the Benetton is now producing of the order of 700 horsepower. I was talking to a very confident Jeff Goddard, the man who designed of Cosworth, who designed the Ford engine, and he is quite confident that in terms of horsepower, the Ford can now live with the Ferrari, Renault and Honda engines. And of course, that engine is in the new Benetton 191, which you will be seeing. It's a bit down the grid because both Moreno in 13th position on the grid and Piquet, his teammate, 14th on the grid, have had an enormous number of new car problems. You see there a repeat of the World Championship situation. Riccardo Patrese, the only man to have scored for the Williams team so far in 4 starts, 2 at Phoenix and 2 in Brazil. And this is the Circuito Enzo Andino Ferrari, named originally after Enzo Ferrari's son, and then the great Enzo Ferrari's name was added to the circuit, and you saw the Ferrari prancing horse on the control tower. And behind Stefano Modena, who, as I just said, was in 6th position, there is the second Ferrari of Jean Alesi, who has not actually gone all that well. There's the answer. So it's declared a wet race. So, through the grid again, pole position, 55th time, Senna, alongside him Patrese, the Ferrari of Prost, the Williams of Mansell, row 3, the second McLaren of Berger and the Tyrrell of Modena, row 4, Alesi in the Ferrari, Morbidelli in the Minardi, then his teammate Morbidelli's Martini in the 5th row of the grid with Nakajima, the Japanese driver, in the Tyrrell, De Cesaris and Gasho in the Jordans, excellent, 6th row, Moreno and Piquet, the 2 Benettons, 7th row, Gujamin, the Leighton House, and Leto in the Dallara, 8th row, Eric Bernard and Martin Brundle in the new Brabham, and then, as you just saw, Suzuki in row 10, followed by Van der Poel, the Belgian, first drive in the Lamborghini car, and in the 13th row of the grid, bringing up the rear, the 2 Lotus Jugs of Finland's Mika Hakkinen and Julian Bailey from England, starting in his first 1991 Grand Prix.
Yes, and the wet race you've seen has now been declared, and for sure all right-thinking drivers will be starting on wet tyres because they get no grip at all on this soaking wet track. However, the sun, you can see that the sun is coming out, the sun is now out, and the sky looks relatively clear, and there's every chance that the track will dry out. I would think in as little as 10 laps that people will be looking, if we have no further showers, we'll be looking in less than 10 laps, probably 6 or 7 laps to get back onto dry tyres. Any time after that, and remember the early stoppers usually take the advantage here. So there's Alain Prost. He is unlikely to be one of the earliest stoppers. He'll like to make quite sure the car is going to be nice and stable on dry tyres, and that may be a disadvantage to him. Aggressive tactics in terms of an early tyre stop are definitely the order of the day here for the drivers. We'll wait and see who has got the guts to come in very early.
Yeah, I've had a quick look out of the window to make sure that there are not some right-thinking drivers on the grid, and as far as I can see there aren't, because they've all got treaded wet tyres on. Some of them, most of them on Goodyears, a smattering of them on Pirellis, notably the Benetton and Tyrrell teams, with Stefano Modena, the top Pirelli runner, in 6th position on the grid. So, it's wet, it's unpredictable. I'll stick my neck out and say I'll be surprised if it doesn't dry out. A lot of the drivers were intending to start on the softest compound tyre that was available, assuming the conditions were dry, and stop only once, but I think we're probably going to see 2 or 3 stops, depending on conditions. Gerhard Berger there, 5th position on the grid in the McLaren Honda V12. Very, very quick here at Imola. I remind you that he led for most of the race last year. Ayrton Senna in his 55th pole position, but not nearly as much faster as he's used to being. only 1/10 of a second faster in practice than Riccardo Patrese, who in turn was only 2/10 of a second faster than Alain Prost. Now this is, as I was saying, the Tamburello that they're approaching now, and just you can see now what an enormous advantage the man in the front, Ayrton Senna, has got. He is the only man, if he has a clean start, who will have a clear track in front of him, because all the rest will be having to contend with the plumes of spray and the solid wall of water that has been thrown up. But Julian Bailey's just getting away very late, but it's not going to be a problem for him as it might have been, because he was last on the grid anyway, so he hasn't been passed by anybody, in which case he would have had to stay where he was. So this is the top chicane, the Variante Alta, where they have done a bit of a climb down into third gear. From here they drop downhill to the double 90-degree bend Rivazza, and then through the second chicane and through to complete the lap.
And there we are on board with Nigel Mansell. Looks like from this angle, and that gives you a fair idea of what the spray is like when they're going slowly. When they're going at full racing speed, it gets a lot worse, and you really can't see anything. But in the early part of the race, drivers will be much better to be thinking about when to make their pit stop than to really be concentrating on trying to go quickly. And there's a spinner there already. That's a Ferrari. And was that Prost or was it Alesi? That was Prost. And another spinner. So there's I would suspect there's a big puddle that looks like there's a river running across the track there. That was Berger. Prost. If Prost stalled his engine, he's in real trouble. And it looks like he has. Prost looked to me to be trying to get out of his car then. And if Prost has stalled, I don't see how he's going to get back into the race at all. And well, he was rolling backwards then. So the most important, there's more time to be gained from the early laps of the race when the circuit's drying out by timing the pit stop right than by driving fast. And remember, all these cars will be on the dry setup with their suspension and wings, and therefore they'll be anxious to get onto dry tyres.
Absolute tragedy for Prost and Ferrari, of course, out of the car. He's not starting. Well, this is dreadful for Ferrari, their top man. An enormous benefit for Ayrton Senna, who's not only starting at the front of the grid, but has now had one of his main rivals, Alain Prost, the world champion 3 times, removed from the San-Marino Grand Prix before it even starts, and for such a trivial reason. But there is heavy water there, and they're going to have to go very carefully on that first lap. Senna may not realise how bad it was because he was leading round. He won't be aware of the fact that Berger and Prost have both spun off. He will have been told over his radio, of course, that Prost is no longer behind him on the grid, which was where he was supposed to be, and it's now his teammate, Gerhard Berger, who is right behind Ayrton Senna on the right-hand side of the grid. Nigel Mansell comes out and slots in front of Gerhard Berger, who is passed by Modena. Very bad start by Gerhard Berger, and into the lead goes Riccardo Patrese. And so now it's Ayrton Senna who is going to have to take a faceful of water, and that's going to be very hard indeed for him. Riccardo Patrese well fired up, the man who won last year in the Williams Renault. Now he's coming down to the Tosa here. In second place is Senna, third is Modena, fourth is Berger, fifth is the second Ferrari of Jean Alesi, and already things are happening.
Yes, and Nigel Mansell seemed to get her off the line all right and then have a stutter, and he's well down the field. Mansell just suddenly stopped, the cars went in every direction to get round him. So, Patrese, you see the car sliding about on turn in there, Modena in third place, driving sensibly, giving a little bit of space in front, Berger fourth.
Alesi in fifth position, and Pierluigi Martini and Morbidelli are taking the next 2 places. In the Minardi Ferrari, which has had aerodynamic changes since the Brazilian Grand Prix and is a much better motor car. Gerhard Berger in fourth place is catching and seems to be about to pass Modena, and Alain Prost there out of the race as race leader. Lap 1, Riccardo Patrese, Senna in second place. It is still Modena in third position. Berger is fourth. Alesi in the Ferrari is in fifth position. It is Martini, then Morbidelli, then Nakajima, then Bertram Gasho in the Lotus. Nigel Mansell right down ahead of Andrea De Cesaris in the second Jordan.
Yes, and in the background there you can actually see there, the car going through the river across the track. You can see that little river just under the Marlborough Bridge. But problems, it would appear, for Nigel Mansell. Mansell down in the middle of the field there was seeming to not be going properly. I hope it's not gearbox trouble.
So he did, Mansell spins. It's happened to Prost, it's happened to Mansell, it's happened to Berger for the lap for Prost and Berger, of course, before the race began. Now, is Nigel Mansell out of his third Grand Prix? Yes, he's got to be, because if he has a push start, he's out of the race. Out comes the steering wheel, and Nigel Mansell is the first retirement from the SanMarino Grand Prix, and it happened on lap 2. That's the third time we've seen Mansell walk in 3 races.
Yes, and that looked like gearbox trouble right from the start. And so much for the secret steering wheel, because the way that came out, would have been on the Italian Marshal's wall by this evening. And as Nelson Piquet. Piquet clearly spun off into the sand in the brand new Benetton. And, they've had a lot of trouble this weekend. In fact, his teammate, Roberto Moreno, went very well with the car in the warm-up this morning.
Well, you can see what the problem is. Well, Nigel Mansell thunderstruck, obviously, and justifiably a very, very unhappy man. Now, if it was gearbox trouble, and I don't know that it was, is Riccardo Patrese, who is in the lead, going to have the same problem? He is now on the second full lap, and Gerhard Berger is up into third position ahead of Stefano Modena, who is followed by Jean Alesi in fifth position, and at the end of the first lap, Riccardo Patrese led Ayrton Senna by 2.5 seconds. Over the line then, completing another lap go the 2 lead men, Patrese and Senna, and you're looking down now at Gerhard Berger in third position, ahead of Stefano Modena, fourth, ahead of Jean Alesi in fifth position, and Riccardo Patrese is underlining the brilliant form that he has shown ever since he joined Williams, but in particular 1990 and now 1991. This is the third, fourth and fifth men. Modena is now being challenged by Jean Alesi. This is the corner that can cause trouble and has caused trouble, and you saw Jean Alesi up into fourth position, lock up and go off. Alesi off.
Yes, and that was over-brave by Alesi, because he put 2 wheels on the grass when he was braking, trying to get inside Modena under braking, which was an extremely risky manoeuvre, and he then was just going too quickly round there. Now, he's just come off the grass. He's already been on the grass once there with the right-hand wheels, and now he's sliding the car into the corner, and he just runs out of grip. He's not so much out of control, he just hasn't got the grip, and he slides wide, but that was over-enthusiastic driving in these conditions in a 200-mile race, and the lazy inexperience there has thrown it away for him.
And both Ferraris are out of the SanMarino Grand Prix after 3 laps. Dreadful.
The political pressure that's been on Ferrari here after the Italian public perceived it to be their failure in the opening 2 races of the season after their brilliant form during the winter in testing caused a lot of disappointment. And
have you ever had to go after first gear on a start like that? What happened? If you haven't, I wouldn't recommend it. It's fucking pissed off. In the end, I drive slow, I get it together, it's a fucking nightmare, and someone stuffs me up and actually coming first, lap 3.
So, exit an unhappy Mansell.
Join battle at that stage. A little bit of a lead though. Well, they've craned away Alesi's car nice and quickly, because it was in a very dangerous place right on the outside of that corner, as Patrese spins his wheels, powering his way up the hill, fighting for grip.
And on this, the 4th lap, as there is one of the Lolas has gone out, it's Suzuki, Aguri Suzuki, out of the race, and so Suzuki joins Prost, who retired before the race even began. Nigel Mansell out lap 2. Nelson Piquet out lap 2. Jean Alesi out lap 3. And now Suzuki out on lap 4. Race order then, Patrese leads, Senna second, Berger in third position. You can see the time gaps. In fourth position is Stefano Modena, fifth is Martini, and sixth Nakajima.
There was a spinner there with some contact, a bit of debris in the track, the middle of the track. And I didn't quite catch it. I think it was one of the Jordans, was one of the cars, probably Gasho, because I saw the other Jordan coming behind, and Gasho had been in front of De Cesaris. Anyway, we'll have to look and see. Here we are, we see it again. No, that was the earlier incident. Yes, that was another incident. So, Patrese, and now Patrese really driving fabulously. We have some shots of him really confidently throwing the car around, and he's pulled away a couple of seconds on Senna, a bit more than 3 seconds clear of him now. And well, I don't think that Senna will be getting too anxious about that, and in fact it's some 5 seconds. So Patrese starting to pull away at the front of the field.
You saw someone come out of the pits, and the someone was Martin Brundle in the Brabham Yamaha, and after 4 laps Riccardo Patrese leads Ayrton Senna by 5.3 seconds. He's actually lapping at the moment, nearly 2.5 seconds faster than the Brazilian, with Berger in third place, Modena in fourth position. There they are, going up the hill to the Piratella. That is Ayrton Senna in second position. Satoru Nakajima is up with his teammate in fifth position. And do you remember how Nakajima, who is currently fifth, went in the Australian Grand Prix in 1989, and he had the fastest lap of the race? So Nakajima, who has gone extremely well in all the practice sessions, dry and wet here at Imola, is in the points this early in the race, followed by the 2 Minardi Ferraris. In the inset, you can see the Jordan, the distinctive green liveried Jordan pitmen, and it was the Jordan in the background that got damaged. Pretty sure, yes, it was Bert Gasho, because Andrea De Cesaris is in 8th position, following Morbidelli. So race order then, as you watch Ayrton Senna nearly losing it there. Patrese leads, Senna second, Berger third, Modena fourth, Nakajima fifth, Martini sixth, Morbidelli seventh, De Cesaris is 8th, Moreno is 9th, Lato is 10th, Van der Poel in his first Grand Prix in the Lamborghini is 11th, and Maurizio Gugelmin is 12th, as you look at Mika Hakkinen. Now, mark my words, watch this man. Watch Mika Hakkinen, because he was sensational in the wet in the Lotus yesterday. Third fastest. He's the youngest man in the race, and the Judd V8 engine in the Lotus gives ideal power and torque for these conditions. It is not too powerful, and Harkinen's reflexes are superb. He's going to move up a lot.
That's well, new fastest lap of the race now for Berger, and the circuit isn't really drying yet, but if you look there at that picture, you can see that the racing line and various points of the circuit is starting to dry out. There's still much too much water around for anybody to think about changing onto dries yet, but it won't be too long before you see there it's starting to dry on the line. Good picture from the onboard camera in Patrese's car. The sun is still shining brightly, no rain, but we have got a black cloud sort of coming our way, but it doesn't look too threatening right now. And I have to say that I really wouldn't be, and there's Hakkinen, I think, there, looking to make up another place. And I really would not want to be a Ferrari driver right at this very moment. Well, this very moment's all right, because they probably haven't got back to the pits yet. They both parked a bit of a way around the circuit. But quite honestly, it's with the pressures in Italy, and both Ferraris went out through driver error. And Ferrari has traditionally not been easy on their drivers when they make mistakes. And that really is a disaster for Ferrari, perpetrated by both the drivers. And they will not be having an easy 2 weeks before Monte Carlo.
Well, Mika Hakkinen, you just saw flying past and he's now up into 15th position, having started 25th on the grid. Mika Hakkinen in the rejuvenated Lotus, because they had a dreadful year last year with Warwick, and that is Mark Blundell in the brand new Brabham Yamaha in his third Grand Prix, retiring, and this is Roberto Moreno battling with Andrea De Cesaris, and there's battles all through the field. Now De Cesaris in the green Jordan Ford, chased by Brazilian Roberto Moreno in the Benetton with the Ford V8 engine.
Well, De Cesaris, I think justifiably there, was leaning on Moreno. And that is Blundell having his spin. We saw him recovering from that. The good thing he didn't go any further, because he might have collected the Lotus. Moreno is passed, so Moreno gets past Andrea De Cesaris. And watch for Roberto Moreno. He's a very talented driver. We've seen him run behind Piquet in the Benetton team, into second place in Japan last year, and fairly effectively. But he's now finding his feet in the team, and I expect a lot from Moreno, and he's certainly doing well. He's come through from his grid position somewhere around 15th, and he's moving up the field.
Indeed, he's up into 8th position at the moment, and there he is in the multi-coloured Benetton, and he is chasing Morbidelli now in 7th place, the young Italian, famous for motorcycle Grand Prix racing. Not that he rides in them, but his family produced Grand Prix motorcycles. And Morbidelli now, having tested for Ferrari, and he is the Ferrari tester, driving the Minardi Ferrari, is in 8th position. Roberto Moreno 9th, Andrea De Cesaris is 10th, and that is JJ Leto in 11th place in the Dallara.
And up at the front, Senna is showing the maturity that his rivals must fear, because that's been the one remaining weakness to his driving, because he's now speeded up. He wisely let Patrese go, didn't want to drive blind, didn't want to sit in a huge plume of spray. But as the track's starting to dry out, look at him. He's coming right back, and he's going quicker and quicker. Now that there isn't so much spray coming from the Williams, I don't think he'll challenge, but he'll want to be close. And if he's thinking along the right lines, he won't be as worried about the Williams in front of him as he will about when to make his pit stop. And that looks like one of the Minardis, and that is Morbidelli spinning away his 7th place, I think it was, handing it over to Roberto Moreno. So Moreno is moving relentlessly up towards the points.
And on this, the 8th lap, it is Riccardo Patrese, a mere 3 seconds in front of Ayrton Senna, who is catching him as the track dries out. And there is Ayrton Senna. Now they're starting to lap people. They have passed Eric Comas in the Ligier Lamborghini. Gerhard Berger is 3rd, Modena is 4th, Nakajima is 5th, Martini 6th, Moreno 7th, De Cesaris 8th, then it's Leto 9th, Morbidelli 10th, Van der Poel and Gugelmin, and the gap is now 2.5 seconds between race leader that you're looking at, Riccardo Patrese, in this his 211th Grand Prix, with Ayrton Senna having closed up a lot, but the gap has stabilised at the moment, albeit Senna was 1 second faster than Patrese on the lap that has just been concluded. And as James has said, I don't think Senna will be at all fussed. He will know that they've got to come in and change tyres, and the McLaren mechanics have been superlatively good at tyre changing in the first 2 Grand Prix of this year. So we look down now at the top chicane, the Variante Alta, at the Renault-powered Williams of Riccardo Patrese, last year's winner. They're dropping down now towards the Rivazza. This is the Variante Alta. I'm sorry, I was ahead of myself. And they drop down now in 4th, 5th and 6th gears at about 180, 85, even 190 miles an hour, even in these conditions, to the 2nd gear Rivazza. This is it. And you can see that Senna is inching up on Patrese, and the 2 of them are some 7 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger, who is 3rd, some 5 seconds ahead of 4th position Stefano Modena, who leads his teammate Nakajima in the 2nd Tyrrell by some 8 seconds. So it's a great race thus far for the Tyrrell team, clear track, and Senna is soon going to be up with Riccardo Patrese and challenging for the lead as they start lap 10.
Yes, and I do think another fastest lap of the race for Senna, so the track is drying slowly, and we'll see what Senna wants to do, but I don't think he should be really making any big effort to pass Patrese. He might want to put the pressure on and see if he can force some sort of a mistake, but I would think within 5 laps now it's going to be tyre changing time, and there's no real advantage for Ayrton Senna to try and fight his way past or take any risk. Now they're pulling away from the others, and after all it's Berger in 3rd place, lapping in a pretty similar sort of speed, and so thereby protecting Senna's rear, as it were. And then there's quite a big gap of some 15 seconds between Berger and Modena, so Patrese and Senna are well away. Senna's got Berger to help him, and the rest are nowhere, and he can really try and get his overtaking done from the pits, as it were, but it's not in Senna's nature. And look, he's closing up, and that's close enough to suggest that he's going to try and pass him if the opportunity presents itself.
The cars on the right, oh, well, they've taken them away now, so I can't tell you, but I will tell you now that it was number 6, Riccardo Patrese, at the top, followed by number 1, world champion, for the second time in 1990, as he was in 1988, Ayrton Senna. Master tactician, master driver in the wet or the dry, and he's proving it now. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he challenges, and he has done so, and he nips through on braking at the chicane, and into the pits comes Riccardo Patrese. Now, is this tyres?
This is tyres. That's interesting. He's certainly gone for the brave decision to do the early tyre stop, and there still looks to be a lot of water on some parts of the circuit, so we'll look at Patrese's lap times, and his engine wasn't sounding too healthy then either, so maybe he's come in because he's got some sort of an engine problem, maybe a bit of water in the electrics. Well, they're having a look at the engine cover. The dry tyres are on, so it looks to me as if Patrese has got some sort of a mechanical problem. Yes, it's more than just tyres.
Well, it looks as though this race is going to be equally disastrous for Williams as it already has been for Ferrari. Prost out before the race began, Alesi out on lap 3, Nigel Mansell out on lap 2, and now, although Riccardo Patrese is not actually out of the race, effectively he is, because look at the way the time is ticking away, and Riccardo still sitting in the car, having a discussion with Patrick Head, the car's designer. Very agitated, Riccardo. This is the man who won last year, and he's had victory snatched from him, a potential victory this year. So Senna now leads Berger by 7 seconds. Modena third is 10 seconds behind Berger. Nakajima is 7 seconds behind Modena. The two Tyrrells third and fourth. Martini in the Minardi Ferrari is fifth. Moreno is up into the points in 6th position for the first time this year in the points. De Cesaris 7th, and there is the confirmation on the screen.
Yes, and Moreno has been closing in on Pierluigi Martini quite rapidly and will be challenging him shortly. But this really is the most terrible disappointment that we've lost both Williamses, or effectively both Williamses. We have lost both Ferraris, and really the McLarens look as if they're going to be able to run out this race unchallenged, and to me that's a huge disappointment, and I'm sure it is to you at home. So on behalf of Formula 1 racing, I humbly apologise to everybody.
Well, I don't actually, and here's why. Look at this man, Gerhard Berger. He's taken a second and a half out of Ayrton Senna's lead, as you see the car being dragged away there. And Ayrton Senna's lead is down to just over 5 seconds now over Gerhard Berger. There are no team orders in the McLaren team. Ayrton Senna, of course, with a commanding World Championship lead over Gerhard Berger of 16 points. Wouldn't have to worry too much if Gerhard Berger caught and passed him, although the Brazilian's pride would be very much affected. But at the present moment, Berger is lapping some 1.5 seconds faster, or did on the previous lap, than his teammate Ayrton Senna, and Berger's got everything to go for. I think he must feel very humble about the fact that in his second year with McLaren, having won for Benetton, having won for Ferrari, he has yet to win for McLaren. And a lot of people who know have been saying in the pit lane that Berger is the man to watch. We will soon see whether they're right as Ayrton Senna comes through to complete his 12th lap. And that is Mika Hakkinen still charging up through the field. He's just past Van der Poel and he is in 10th position. Mika Hakkinen, who started 25th, has now gained 15 places. Here he is.
Yes, and the worrying thing for Mika Hakkinen, of course, is that as it dries out, it's all going to go backwards again after such a superb drive. And so poor Mika must be praying for another downpour, but I'm looking at the sky and I don't see one in the offing. So Mika's moment of glory looks to have very little of it left. In the meantime, Senna and Berger trading fastest laps. The circuit is definitely drying out now, and it must be getting very close to dry tyres time. Not quite yet, there are still some rather treacherous wet bits around, but within the next 2 laps I think the early changes should be in.
Now you can see Hakkinen, he has caught the one Dallara in the race with Emanuele Pirro having failed to pre-qualify. Mika Hakkinen has caught his fellow countryman, the Finnish driver JJ Leto, who is driving the Dallara Judd with a V10 engine and flying along behind them. And Senna is coming into the pits. Van der Poel is the third car here. So Ayrton Senna in for a pit stop as over the line Mika Hakkinen is surely going to take that place from JJ Leto, who is in 9th place. And Ayrton Senna is scheduled to come into the pits on the next step, and it's Julian Bailey going through on the inside. Julian Bailey is actually ahead of his teammate Mika Hakkinen, and the race order, Ayrton Senna on lap 40. Now here's Berger into the pits. He was in 2nd place. A good pit stop, I remind you, is 7 seconds. Anything less is very good, and that is terrific. Gerhard Berger, 6.45 seconds, and that was lap 14.
Yes, and I would think that Senna will be in on the next lap, because you can see there's a dry line nearly the whole way around the circuit, and that's definitely tyre changing time as the Cesaris comes in his Jordan.
And if you're wondering whether Riccardo Patrese has rejoined the race, the sad answer is he has not. And the retirements are on this, the 14th lap out of 61. Alain Prost on the warm-up lap when he spun out. Nigel Mansell, Nelson Piquet, Jean Alesi, Aguri Suzuki, Riccardo Patrese, both the Williams then out, both the Ferraris out. That is Martin Brundle in the Brabham Yamaha. And the race order on lap 14 out of 61. Ayrton Senna leads Gerhard Berger by 20 seconds. Roberto Moreno into the pits on your inset. He was in 6th position. And the McLaren pit is ready for Ayrton Senna now, leading the race by 20 seconds with Gerhard Berger having rejoined. And I'm pretty sure that Senna will get back in the lead. Now let's wait and see. Remember, Gerhard Berger's pit stop time was 6.4 seconds. Anything longer than that will mean that Senna's lead has been reduced, and it's been reduced by 1 second. And he's going to come out of the pits just about as Gerhard Berger approaches the finishing straight and goes through, and Senna rejoins the race in the lead, just 5 seconds now ahead of Gerhard Berger.
Yes, and as I rather suspected, everybody has changed too late, because Berger's first flying lap was the fastest lap of the race, and that isn't right. That means that he's left it a couple of laps too long. But the circuit, to be fair, did start to dry slowly. It was very wet indeed, and then once the line got to dry, it dried very quickly indeed. But and anybody who stays out on wets now is making a big mistake.
Now here we are, Senna then leading, Berger only 5 seconds behind him now. Modena is 3rd, and the second Tyrrell of Nakajima is in 4th position. Martini is 5th, and De Cesaris in the Jordan Ford is 6th. Capelli in the Leighton House is 7th. Julian Bailey is in 8th position in the Lotus in his first 1991 Grand Prix. Eric van der Poel in the Lamborghini, and you're looking at Gerhard Berger and Ayrton Senna together on lap 15. That's how close it is, and they're coming up now to catch Maurizio Gugelmin, and Martin Brundle, of course, has already been into the pits. Now here is Gugelmin leading Van der Poel, and the McLaren goes through. That's the gap. And look at the way Gerhard Berger closes up on braking and goes through on the inside. The gap is really narrowing now, and Gerhard Berger will be seeing for himself an opportunity to get into the lead at San Marino. They are both on new tyres. Lap 15. Long way to go yet. Now, coming up to catch Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier and Maurizio Gugelmin in the Leighton House is Ayrton Senna. And he's bound to lose some time here. Even Ayrton Senna is going to have a job to get past both of them in one go. And that will give Gerhard Berger, second in the second red and white McLaren Honda, the opportunity to close right up on the race leader. And it is happening. There's the confirmation that Gerhard Berger is now the fastest man on the circuit. 1 minute 36.96. Well down on the lap record held by Alain Prost in the McLaren. 1 minute 26.8. Just enjoy this as they come up to the top chicane. And Senna is past the Ligier of Thierry Boutsen, and Berger is not. But now Senna has got to catch and pass Maurizio Gugelmin, his Brazilian countryman in the Leighton House. This is the Rivazza, second gear. And Senna is a pass master at carving his way through the traffic. And Gerhard Berger will be fuming there as he sees his opportunity fading away.
Yes, and these cars that are still on wet tyres will be clinging to the dry bit of road and slowing down the quicker cars, but most of the front runners have changed. Modena's been in and out, put dry tyres on without losing third place. Senna gets through. Berger still at the back of that bunch, and that won't please him because there's an awful lot of traffic in his way, and one daren't go far off the racing line here. Well, he's tiptoed his way through there past Boutsen, and he hasn't lost too much ground to Senna.
Now let's just absorb this. Senna and Berger leading, and then in third and fourth positions the two Tyrrell Hondas, so it's Honda powered cars. First, second, third and fourth, the two V12 Honda McLarens of Senna and Berger leading, and then the two Honda V10 powered cars of Modena and Nakajima, and that's one of them. And out of the race goes Nakajima. Satoru Nakajima has overcooked it somewhere and retires from fourth position, and that means to say that up into the new fourth position now comes Pierluigi Martini with Roberto Moreno up into fifth place, and Julian Bailey is in the points in the Lotus. In his first Grand Prix of 1991, Julian Bailey is in sixth place. Terrific performance, and Mika Hakkinen is going extremely well too. He is 10th. Now go the McLaren boards to Senna and Berger, place 1 and place 2. And Riccardo Patrese back in the race.
Yes, and they've got nearly a minute's lead over Stefano Modena, who's in third place. So at the moment this looks like a McLaren demonstration run, and quite honestly I think that's something that'll have to go wrong with the McLarens for anything fundamentally to change, with their main rivals already out of the race. Tremendous performance in the wet by Julian Bailey, but of course he's losing ground now by not having changed his tyres, and he really needs to get in and get onto dry tyres, but that certainly doesn't take away from his marvellous performance in the wet.
Lap 18, Senna leads Berger by the distance you can see as they come up to lap Riccardo Patrese, and Senna has just lapped Maurizio Gugelmin, who is in 16th place. Modena is in third position. Marino in the Benetton is fourth. Its first race. Capelli in the Leighton House, and you can see him in the picture now chasing Riccardo Patrese, who has joined, is fifth. Satoru Nakajima out of course, and that means to say that Pierluigi Martini is now sixth because he is ahead of Julian Bailey, who has temporarily, British viewers will hope, slipped down the point, out of the points. Then is Thierry Boutsen in eighth position. Van der Poel, the Belgian driver, is chasing his Belgian countryman Thierry Boutsen. He is in ninth place, Van der Poel. Mika Hakkinen is 10th. Eric Bernard is 11th. Mark Blundell in the Brabham is in 12th position. Eric Comas is 13th. And down to the Rivazza comes Ayrton Senna. Now, it's going to be interesting to see whether Riccardo Patrese, and we're looking at Senna now through Patrese's on-car camera, can hold on to the McLaren Honda.
And he's certainly doing that pretty well, and that's great because we usually get a nice view of Senna lapping the circuit. Now, the leaders are going pretty quickly now. The circuit's not far off being completely dry on the line because we're only some 4 seconds a lap away from a full dry time with this sort of fuel load on board. Senna and Berger all on their own with a huge lead, and as yet Stefano Modena in third place has not come through, and there he is, and he's now some 58 seconds behind Gerhard Berger, and he's over a minute behind Senna, so very nearly a minute between the McLarens and their nearest rival.
Senna has just lapped Andrea De Cesaris in the Jordan Ford, and De Cesaris is in 10th position. And off the course goes the Lola of Eric Bernard, the Frenchman. It looks to me as though he's not only off the course but out of the race on lap 19 to join Prost, Mansell, Piquet, Alesi, Suzuki, his teammates. Poor Gerard Larousse, for the second race in succession, is having neither of his Larousse Lola Fords finish, and that is terrible news for Gerard because he has acute sponsorship problems and desperately needs the money, and with two cars failing to finish both races in succession, it's not going to be good for him. Now, Gerhard Berger is within 3.5 seconds of Ayrton Senna, but as usual he's got traffic to contend with, and there it is.
Yes, well, hopefully he'll get past the Ligier on the main straight, and because he was tied up in that little gaggle of cars for quite some time, but he didn't lose too much ground. And Patrese may be more difficult for him to pass, but he's still got the Ligier to deal with. But the McLaren is a good bit quicker on the straights than the Ligier.
Eric Comas in the Ligier is in 15th place, and now here's Senna coming up to lap 1 of the Brabham Yamahas. It looks like Martin Brundle to me. Senna has just gone around the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 30.7, which is exactly 4 seconds off Alain Prost's lap record, caused of course by the fact that the circuit is still damp in places. And you can see Riccardo Patrese is not being caught at all by Gerhard Berger, who is in second place, now 5.3 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. There is the Austrian.
Yes, so that time still tumbling down because right after that pass that Senna did that Murray told you about, Berger put up a quicker one, but Senna's gone quicker still. And that's how it is. The circuit is almost completely dry on the line, but still a lot of concentration and extra care required by the drivers because whilst the racing line itself is dry, you've only got to get a yard off it and it's wet, and of course if you're doing a dry sort of speed then the car just gets away from you very quickly indeed, and there's nothing you can do. So it's a little bit of tiptoe, but Senna now only a couple of seconds away from full dry time.
Riccardo Patrese that you're watching or were watching is in 19th place, and now Ayrton Senna has lapped everybody up to the 4th position man, Roberto Moreno. That is how fast and how superior the Brazilian is as he comes out of the Traguardo to complete another lap. I'll tell you what the gap is between Senna and Berger when Berger goes through. 5.3 seconds. Modena third, Marino fourth, Capelli fifth, Boutsen in sixth place. Leto is seventh, and he's still having that battle with Julian Bailey, who is in eighth position. 7 seconds now between Senna and Berger, and the Brazilian has just gone round 1.7 seconds faster than the man you're looking at, Gerhard Berger, second.
Yes, new fastest lap now for Riccardo Patrese. So whilst he is not in contention for the race, he's out there splitting the McLarens, and believe me, he's going to enjoy himself. In front of his home crowd, he is still basking in his win in this race last year, which he really enjoyed, despite the fact that it was inherited after Berger slowed down and handed it over to him. But it has made him a very happy man, and he will be out to enjoy himself this afternoon, and I'm quite sure he'd like to stay between the McLarens and then slowly chip away at Senna's lead. And there's nothing that Patrese would like to do for his own ego and pride and for the fun of the fans here is to catch and pass Ayrton Senna and unlap himself. Unfortunately, he's got several laps to unlap, and he's not going to do that, but he can at least have fun.
Now, Patrese's problem, we have heard from the Williams pit, is that he had a misfire which has been cured. And at the end of the race, towards the end of the race, he's going to stop, put on fresh tyres and go for the fastest lap. He may not have to bother to do that because he's got it at the moment, although we can expect things as the warm sun, and it is a warm now, really dries out the course, and Senna will go faster. But Senna now has such a commanding lead for what is looking more and more like his 29th Grand Prix victory, that he really can take things comparatively easy by his standards. And if Senna wins here, it would be the hat-trick, 3 wins in succession to give him 30 points. His nearest rival, Alain Prost, is out of the race. His next 2 rivals, Riccardo Patrese and Nelson Piquet, are effectively out of the points because Piquet has retired. And Berger, who is 16 points behind Senna in the championship, is second in the race. And it would look more and more and more, even this early in the season, as Senna goes through to lap Roberto Moreno, who is in 4th position in the new Benetton Ford. It would look more and more like Senna's 3rd World Championship. And this is only the 3rd out of 16 races. Riccardo Patrese touring again. He looks destined not to stop. Well, he's out of the race, no doubt about it this time. Riccardo Patrese definitely retires on lap 23. And so far then, the Williams team in 3 races have had Nigel Mansell retire in Phoenix, in Brazil and San Marino. They've had Patrese retire at Phoenix and San Marino. They've only had 1 finish. The McLaren policy has always been to develop new parts. For instance, they're known to be working on a semi-automatic gearbox, but not to fit it until they are absolutely confident that it's going to be reliable. Senna said before the first Grand Prix of the year at Phoenix in Arizona, the thing that will decide this year's World Championship, with every World Championship point to count, 16 races, as opposed to last year where the best 11 out of 16 counted, is reliability. And McLaren's policy ensures reliability. Now, this is Van der Poel, the Belgian, who is in 11th place, and Mika Hakkinen, who is 12th. The Lotus on the left, and that's Eric Van der Poel's picture in the top right-hand corner. This is his first Grand Prix. And J.J. Leto, who is Harkinen's teammate, is now in 6th position. Race order then, on lap 23. Senna 7.5 seconds ahead of Berger, who is very nearly a minute ahead of Stefano Modena in 3rd position. Roberto Moreno has been lapped and is 4th. Ivan Capelli, good news for the Leighton House Ilmore team, in 5th position. Good news for 2, Dallara. In 6th position is J.J. Leto. Thierry Boutsen is the highest he has ever been in a Grand Prix this year since joining Ligier, having left Williams, not of his own volition. is in 7th place. Julian Bailey, a great 8th. Andrea De Cesaris in the Jordan is 9th. Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi Ferrari is 10th. Eric van der Poel, the Belgian, in his first Grand Prix in the Lamborghini is 11th. Mika Hakkinen is 12th. Mark Blundell in the Brabham Yamaha is 13th. Lap twice, 14th, Eric Comas. Lap twice, 15th, Mauricio Gugelmin. Bertrand Gachot, lapped twice, is 16th. Martin Brundle in 17th place has been lapped 3 times. And Eric Bernard and Patrese, of course, have been lapped 6 times and have now retired anyway. Senna on lap 25, which is coming up towards half distance, which will be 13 and a half laps, is now with Blundell in the new BT60 Brabham Yamaha V12 engine. Very good looking car, but it's very early days for this Sergio Rinland designed car, and it is lapped again. Mark Blundell in his 3rd Grand Prix, the ex-European Formula 2000 champion, who made a sparkling debut in Formula 3000 a couple of years ago, finishing 2nd in the Belgian race at Spa. And he's driving a steady race in a car which has obviously got a problem. It's a very new car, its first appearance, the Brabham, very little testing, and they've had gearbox and all sorts of other problems. But Senna, as again, undoubtedly the top driver of the day. One has to say that now, because you only have to look at his record, even in comparison with that of Alain Prost, is now nearly 12 seconds ahead of Gerhard Berger.
Well, we've just got a report from the pits that Mansell's problem was indeed gearbox. His gearbox had a habit of selecting neutral all of its own accord. He couldn't get second gear at all, and his exit from the race, though, was caused by being hit up the back as one of the Leighton-Houses spins, and that's Capelli, who was running up in 5th place. So problems for Capelli. He's thrown away a very good placing for him. Hopefully he'll get going again, but you will not know. And the car sitting, its thumb is on the curb there, and it's beached. So they've got to manhandle it. And so Mansell, in fact, no doubt, well, he was messing around trying to get gears, was hit up the back on the first lap, and that was what actually put him out of the race.
Well, this looks like Ivan Capelli again. Yes, he's just spinning out. Now, you can see he goes over the curb, beaches the car, and if you can't get it going yourself, you are automatically out.
Yes, and he lost it under braking there. You can see the tyre smoke in the background, and so we saw that replay as he locked up the brakes, arrived far too quickly at the corner, and they've now got a problem moving the car, but and everything's all right. It's all moved.
Well, notwithstanding all these retirements which we have been seeing, there's still 17 left, although it's only lap 27 out of 61, and that is Eric Comas in the inset in the Ligier Lamborghini. The Frenchman, still Senna leading, of course, by an ever-increasing margin, now nearly 12 seconds. Modena is a minute behind Gerhard Berger, who is 2nd, and you are looking now at Andrea De Cesaris and Julian Bailey, who are 8th and 9th. And Bailey goes through. Julian Bailey driving a terrific race, and so it's worth saying a bit about this popular Englishman who comes from Chobham. It's only his 7th Grand Prix. He had what we hoped was going to be a full season with the Tyrrell team in 1988, but he had a lot of non-starts. The man who used to live in Spain and originally made his name when he won the Formula Ford Festival in 1982. Then he won the BBC Grandstand Trophy. That's the man that you're looking at this moment in 1983. And for the last couple of years, he's been driving for Nissan in sports car races before he got his break with Lotus as a result of the sad disappearance of Martin Donnelly after that awful practice crash in Spain last year. Ayrton Senna then on lap 28. 14 seconds. He's still lapping consistently faster than Berger, even though he is absolutely untroubled. And once again, Berger, I won't say has given in, because I'm sure he's not consciously doing that. Here's the battle again between Van der Poel, the Belgian, in the Lamborghini. Mika Hakkinen behind him. And this is Pierluigi Martini, and he is in 8th position, challenging Julian Bailey, who is 7th. So Jules is not far off the points, and they are being chased by Andrea De Cesaris, who has been passed by both of them, because for a while De Cesaris was in the points for Jordan, and that's the first time that a Jordan Ford has been in the points, because although Bertrand Gachot was nearly in the points, both in Phoenix and Brazil, 7th position, he didn't quite make it. So Andrea De Cesaris makes a bit of history there for the popular Eddie Jordan-led team. And Ayrton Senna out on his own, going up to the highest part of the course, the Piratella, bears left, drops down to the Acqua Minerale, right and left. And that's where one year we saw Gerhard Berger go straight across the grass without being penalised. If he did that these days, following the precedent of Ayrton Senna's disqualification in Japan the year before last, which caused such a controversy, he would have been out, but he wasn't. So Senna now on lap 29, just coming up to half distance, has just made the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 27.8, which is 9/10 of a second off Alain Prost's all-time lap record. And it's not going to be very long before Senna has lapped the man who is in 3rd position. Now that's interesting. That is the McLaren pit, with the mechanics seemingly ready to have somebody come in for tyres, but I suspect they're just ready and they're not actually expecting anybody. Van der Poel, first Grand Prix, with the Ligier, and the Lotus of Mika Hakkinen, and the Ligier is Thierry Boutsen driven in 10th place, so you're looking at the battle for 8th, 9th and 10th. Completely clear track, but you can see there's still some wet patches on it. Nowhere that you can happily go offline without risking a major problem on slick tyres. That gives you a good chance to look at this new Lamborghini car. Designed by Mauro Forghieri, ex-Ferrari, as was the V12 engine that powers it. And that is Stefano Modena bringing up the rear, and he's about to lap the Lotus in front of him, number 11, Mika Hakkinen. So let me give you again the race order, with Ayrton Senna leading, Berger second, 16 seconds now behind him. Modena is still a minute behind Berger in 3rd position, Modena. Moreno is still 4th, JJ Leto up to 5th position. Andrea De Cesaris is in 6th place, followed by Julian Bailey 7th, Pierluigi Martini is 8th, Boutsen is 9th. Van der Poel, you're looking at him now in 10th position. Behind him is Mika Hakkinen in 11th place, but he's just been passed by Mark Blundell. And number 4, you just saw there, is the Tyrrell Honda of Stefano Modena, 3rd position, who is coming up to lap the man immediately in front of him. 16 seconds, Senna's lead. Berger, for what it's worth, has just gone round half a second quicker than Ayrton Senna. I don't think it's worth very much, frankly, in terms of closing the gap.
Yes, the McLarens are now really in the realm of soldiering round. They have no hurry. It's quite clear that Berger is not going to attempt to make a challenge to Senna, and the team, I think, now would discourage him for doing that, because with over a minute's lead on Stefano Modena, there's really no point in them racing each other, so the team would certainly let Senna make the pace, ask Berger to stay off his rear, not too closely, not to crowd him, and just to reel off the laps, looking after their equipment.
James, you're very close to McLaren, so let me ask you for this from the horse's mouth. There are lots of teams with lots of money. There are lots of teams with lots of experience. but McLaren year after year and race after race have the reliability and finish up the front, win the Constructors' Championship, their drivers win the Drivers' Championship. Is there some secret?
I suppose the secret is that they're just doing the job better than anybody else. They are their key is extremely good organisation. The whole business is very well structured. They have a first-rate management structure. They've got systems throughout the company that everybody knows what he has to do. Everybody, and it's all brilliantly coordinated. But even McLaren, it doesn't always go perfectly. I mean, last year Senna won the championship, but I can't think of many races that he finished. He finished most of them, but finished with 6 gears still working in his gearbox. And certainly last year they had a great deal of gearbox trouble, but it didn't very often put them actually out of the race. And but if they'd been put under more pressure, it certainly could have been a problem for them. But such was their dominance that they had the luxury of a little bit of time to spare.
Yeah, and Senna's now come up to and past Van der Poel and Hakkinen is going through it for it. Is he going to get through? No. Mika Hakkinen in 10th place, ahead of him in the blue Lamborghini. Eric Van der Poel just coming out of the right-hander of the Traguardo to complete the lap. So you see Senna going through. That was there he is in the front, and coming up behind him fast, the battle between Van der Poel as we look now at Andre de Cesaris, 6th position, being lapped for the 2nd time by Senna, and Andre de Cesaris moves over, locks up his tyres in his eagerness to get out of the McLaren's way. So you can see the car that's got one of the most effective liveries, colour liveries in the race, the Jordan 4, just disappearing over the crest of the hill. Here it is, Andre de Cesaris, 6th place.
Yes, and the battle of the race at the moment is the Van der Poel and Hakkinen battle, and Hakkinen's got a lot of problems there to deal with Van der Poel because the Lotus is clearly hasn't got the power from the Judd engine that the Lamborghini's got, and so on straight line speed Hakkinen's got a problem, so he's climbing all over Van der Poel around the corners, but he's having a lot of trouble trying to get past, and even if he does get past, he's got to do it in such a way that he has a few corners before he gets onto the long straight, otherwise Van der Poel will come straight back past him when they get onto the long straight.
Senna coming up to lap the 3rd place man. This is quite an incredible performance by the Brazilian. The 3rd place man in the blue and white Tyrrell Honda is Stefano Modena, and he doesn't exactly hang about. And Modena coming up to try and get past Thierry Boutsen. So you've got 3 cars on 3 different laps, and Modena, as Senna tries to pass him, moves out from behind Boutsen, and now Modena slams the door in Senna's face. No scruples there.
Yes, and I have to say, I don't think Modena saw Senna, which is a little bit naughty. Modena was clearly concentrating on the Ligier on the straight. He pulled out just as Senna was pulling out, and I don't think he had clocked that he was there, and that is surprising because Modena is a very intelligent thinking driver, and I would have expected him to be very well aware of what was around him, and that clearly was a mistake and not very good driving by Stefano Modena. But Senna, in saying all of that, Senna also, you could see that he was aware that Modena hadn't seen him and was ready to take avoiding action. And of course he's not under pressure either. He's in no hurry to pass Modena, and it wouldn't surprise him if he waits for the whole of a lap and has another go when they get to the main straight again. That's the easy place to do it, and there's no advantage in Senna.
Race was going well. Unfortunately I had a problem with the engine. That's an electrical problem, I think. I was driving, I think, very hard to keep Senna behind, but I think I could do it. And also, for me, it was very good to be in front in the wet, because my good feeling for the race was in the dry setup. And I think if I was in front in the wet, I could have even a better chance when it was dry.
Gathering experience and restraint is certainly what he's showing today, even to the extent that he hasn't passed Modena when they got to the main straight. And this rather supports the theory, which has a lot of credence around the paddock that the V10 Honda is still giving more power than the V12.
And there's a lot of rivalry between the two teams of Honda technicians, because the ones who are looking after the V10 engine in the Tyrrell team want obviously to beat the ones who are looking after the V12 engine with the McLaren. And at the present moment, although Senna is coming up to lap Modena, who is in third position, as James has said, he's either taking his time about it or finding it harder than he thought. And we're on lap 34 now, over half distance in the 61-lap race, as Senna goes to try and go through again. Berger 16.5 seconds behind. Modena is 1.5 minutes behind Senna. That's a full lap, and you can see that for yourselves. Roberto Moreno has been lapped in fourth place, so it's McLaren, Tyrrell, Benetton, first, second, third, fourth. JJ Leto still fifth in the Dallara. Andrea De Cesaris in the points for Jordan, sixth.
Now we'll see Senna getting a tow from the Tyrrell, and we'll see just how easily he can make it past. Remember, both Honda engines. Well, he didn't exactly waft past him. It was a struggle. One would have to say that, of course, you can't really compare engine power by looking at straight line speed, because it entirely depends on the aerodynamics that the teams are running and that sort of thing. But a reasonable guess would be to say that the V10 and the V12 Hondas are pretty much on a par at the moment.
And the McLaren goes over the skyline, and there's a bit of a battle here. It's the Lotus, the Jordan, and then the second Lotus. So now Van der Poel, the Belgian I was telling you about, is in ninth position as you look at De Cesaris, and behind him is the Lotus of Julian Bailey. Now it looks to me as though Julian Bailey is going to be up there in the points again very quickly, and Mika Hakkinen is off the straight. He's in 10th position. Mika Hakkinen, Senna, Berger, Modena, Moreno, Leto, De Cesaris, Martini, Thierry Boutsen, Van der Poel, Hakkinen. So it's the Jordan. There's Andrea De Cesaris. He's taken a lot of stick over the years, but ahead of him now is Mika Hakkinen, and behind him is Julian Bailey. So the Lotuses are having the best race they have had in 1991 by a very considerable margin. Over the line again they go. Bailey is 10th, Hakkinen is 11th. Well, it's turned out to be a copybook performance by Ayrton Senna again, and you're looking now at Julian Bailey really trying with Andrea De Cesaris in the sole Jordan left in the race. This is Martini being chased by Stefano Modena, who's going to lap him. You can see that things are getting very, very spread out indeed, because there are only two cars on the same lap. Then Modena, Moreno, who is fourth, Leto and Andrea De Cesaris and Martini have all been lapped. Thierry Boutsen, who is eighth, has been lapped twice, as has Van der Poel, who is ninth, Bailey, who is 10th, Hakkinen, who is 11th, Mark Blundell, who is 12th, Eric Comas, who is 13th, Gujamin, who is 14th, and then the others have either been lapped twice or are out of the race. Yamaha on the right.
Certainly the Minardi Ferrari seems to have plenty of power and straight line speed. And this is the first time that they have really shown and have been reaping the benefits of their move to Ferrari power.
And it's Martin Brundle, who's been into the pits for a long time and is back in the race and is really going extremely well in the Brabham now. They were actually, perversely enough, hoping for a wet race, because Martin went extremely well in the wet practice, and Roberto Moreno now, fourth position in the yellow and blue Benetton, is coming up to catch the 11th, the 10th position, Mika Hakkinen. I'm sorry, the two Lotuses with each other on the track, separated by about a couple of 100 yards. And number 11 going through there is Mika Hakkinen, who is in 10th position. And he's being caught and will be passed soon by that man, Roberto Moreno, 4th.
Yes, and here's a bit of news that might liven the race up a bit, because there's a big black cloud looming quite close to the circuit now, and coming from the direction in which the weather has been coming. So we may yet get another downpour.
On lap 39 out of 61, so what, another 22 laps to go of this 3.13 mile circuit. Superb circuit at Imola with absolutely perfect facilities, both for the drivers, the journalists, the spectators, everybody. And Moreno is not making a very big impression on the Lotus in front of him, of Julian Bailey, who is now led by Mika Hakkinen. So Hakkinen in 10th place, Bailey in 11th place, and Moreno is going through now and does so. And Senna is catching Mauricio Gugelmin the laps again. Mauricio Gugelmin has already been lapped twice by Ayrton Senna. He's going to be caught lapped for the 3rd time. And Gugelmin is in 14th position and is battling with Eric Comas on the circuit. Now, they may be so... I was going to say they will concentrate on each other, Comas and Gugelmin, so much they may not see Senna, but both of them did and moved out of the way, so Senna goes through to lap both of them.
Yes, that was good driving by Comas, particularly because he had Gugelmin right behind him, and it would have been easy for him not to have spotted Senna coming. And in fact, Senna didn't expect him to have seen him, didn't go for the dive through, was restrained, but Comas made the space. So that was well done, Comas, and what's more, he was able to hold on to his place despite good manners, because good manners when you're battling with another car can have the penalty, as Gugelmin now gets alongside him on the straight with the superior straight line speed of the Leighton House, gets past.
This is quite an encouraging race thus far for the Leighton House team, although of course Ivan Capelli spun out. I don't think there's anything to do with the car, it was a mistake of Ivan Capelli's, but they've had a pretty dreadful season so far, with Gugelmin failing to finish in both Phoenix and Brazil, and Capelli the same. So if Gugelmin finishes here at the San-Marino Grand Prix at Imola, it will be the first finish that the Leighton House team have had with their new Ilmor V10 engine. That's Ilmor, the organisation that has provided the winning engine in Indy racing in America for so long now. And we're seeing more of the Lotuses in this San-Marino Grand Prix than we've seen in both the other races together. Here they are together.
Yes, well, they're battling each other, but more importantly, just in front of them, they've got Boutsen just out of picture, Boutsen and Van der Poel, and if we get some more rain, the Lotuses, both them and their drivers, go well in the wet. They're both young and quick and talented and brave in the wet, Hakkinen in particular, but the chassis seems to like it, and if we get more rain, we could, just as Bailey goes through, we could just get a Lotus in the points, and that really would be a marvellous spirit for the team, because they've struggled for a while and they're making every effort. It certainly would be a nice reward. But the rain is still holding off, and the black cloud may be missing us.
Excellent drive by Julian Bailey up into 10th place. You see, he's got something to prove. He's personally sponsored. He hasn't had much to show for his sponsorship this year because of car problems rather than Bailey problems, and that is Andrea De Cesaris into the pits. He was in 6th position, and it looks to me from the leisurely way he's sitting there and the lack of frenetic activity around the car as though his race is almost over. They're working on the back of the car. It may be gearbox, it may be something, a loose diffuser, something like that, but whatever it is, it means that now Pierluigi Martini has moved up into 6th position as Roberto Moreno laps Van der Poel in 8th position. On this, the 41st lap out of 61, Ayrton Senna leads his teammate Gerhard Berger, both of them in the McLaren Honda V12s, by 16 seconds, and Senna is lapping consistently the fastest of all even though he has this very substantial lead. Stefano Modena is in third position, and in fourth place Roberto Moreno, fifth is Leto, in sixth position it is Pierluigi Martini.
Yes, and through that picture now there are 5 cars, and Moreno was working through that gaggle of 4 cars, which was led by Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier, with Van der Poel and then the 2 Loti all queued up behind.
Ayrton Senna bearing down on to lap Martin Brundle, and Brundle is in 15th place, 3 laps adrift, or 4 laps adrift now. And once again, one has to take one's hat off without a moment's hesitation to the technicians and the leadership of the McLaren organisation, Ron Dennis and all the others, particularly the Honda technicians, who really have done a fantastic job with this new V12 engine. Honda decided that their V10 engine, which won so much in 1990, including the Constructors' Championship for McLaren, wasn't good enough in the light of what was coming up. And there's Andrea De Cesaris touring in. He's been out of the pits and rejoined. And it's Senna, Berger, Modena, Moreno, Leto, Martini. Boutsen is 7th, Van der Poel is 8th, Bailey is 9th, and Hakkinen is 10th.
Yes, referring to what you were just saying, Murray, is that the problem that Honda have got right now is that if you ask Ayrton Senna, the V12 that he's got from them isn't a match for the V10 he had last year, and Senna is not happy right now with the development that's gone on at Honda over the winter. He feels they've gone backwards with the engine. I think probably that was to get strength to the engine. They may have added some weight to some of the internal components to get reliability, but certainly Senna is reading the riot act to Honda and his engineers after every practice session, and in fact they did some modification to his engine last night, and that is not normal practice with Grand Prix engines, with Formula 1 engines, to start fiddling around with the internals of them in the chassis of the car, and that looks like Modena.
I think, I only got a very quick look at him, I think it was Martin Brundle actually in the Brabham Yamaha, but absolutely right. It is Modena, my apologies, James. It's Stefano Modena. Well, now this means to say that with the Italian out of the race in third position, up into the points with Modena sadly shaking his head. I don't know what the problem is, but whatever it is, he's out of the race because he's stopped and he's not allowed to have a push start. And that means to say that Roberto Moreno comes up into the points in the first race for the new Benetton Ford 191. Into third position, with JJ Leto into fourth position. Martini in the Minardi Ferrari is now fifth. Julian Bailey is in the points in sixth place for Lotus. Seventh, Van der Poel. That's another good achievement for the Belgian, and Lamborghini will be very happy about that. Seventh position as Berger goes through and laps Mauricio Gugelmin. Eighth is Mika Hakkinen. Ninth is Thierry Boutsen. 10th is Mark Blundell, 11th is Mauricio Gugelmin, 12th is Eric Comas, 13th but well down, 4 laps adrift is Martin Brundle.
Well, with the exception possibly of the 2 Lotus drivers who are having a lot of fun out there, I would think that everybody else would be rather like the crowd, who, and that is look forward to another downpour so that this race can be stopped. It's now gone far enough to be called a result, and everybody can put themselves out of this misery. The Italian crowd, I should add, have already done that. Half of them have gone already, and they're streaming out of the circuit. They have been ever since the Ferraris went out, which was end of lap 2 or 3, I think, we were Ferrari-less. So really, in a lot of ways, a very disappointing race. One that promised a lot, with first of the 91 European season, all the new cars up at the front of the grid and looking pretty close in dry performance. Then the rain came, the dramas came, and we were left with 2 McLarens all on their own, and that's how it's been ever since. They now have lapped the entire field. They're not racing each other. And really, as I say, the only thing going on is this one. This is the battle. Well, they pulled away from the Loti, but the Loti aren't far away. And that is Comas, I think.
Yes, and the incredible thing is that if Senna and Berger finish first and second, as they show every sign of doing at the moment, Berger will move up into second place in the World Championship, but Ayrton Senna will have 3 times as many points as the man who is in second position, because Senna will have 30 points and Berger will have only 10. And some people may regard that as a matter of regret that the World Championship point system has been changed, A, to give 10 points to the winner of every race, and B, to have every championship point count. There's always a lot of controversy. Whatever you do is going to be wrong as far as somebody is concerned, but it really does look as though Senna already, with only the 3rd Grand Prix out of 16, and with the fabled McLaren reliability to support him for the other 13 races, has got a stranglehold on the 1991 World Championship. But he leads Berger by a decreased margin, 13.5 seconds. That's because, as you can see, Berger has now speeded up. 1 minute 27.581, the fastest lap of the race, has taken 1.5 seconds out of Senna's lead. But Moreno now lapped in 3rd position, Leto lapped in 4th position, Martini, who is 5th, has been lapped twice, Van der Poel is now in 6th position, and Lamborghini will be hysterical, I should think, at that, because they have had a very poor 1991 so far. It's Van der Poel's first race in the World Championship, having driven in Formula 3000 last year, and here he is in 6th position in the Lamborghini, ahead of 7th and 8th Parkinen and Bailey, with Boutsen 9th, Modena 10th, Blundell in 11th place, Guterman is 12th.
Yes, Modena, of course, is out of the race, going backwards on the league. He's still on the leaderboard, but his problem, we gather, was gearbox. So Modena lost any drive to the rear wheels. And Senna's responded. New fastest lap for Senna, so the McLaren drivers are now going to have a bit of competition, or maybe that's all they'll be allowed to do by their pit. But poor old Berger, he puts in fastest lap, and then Senna even goes and is beastly to him unnecessarily in Berger's view, I'm sure, by putting in a yet faster one. But I'm quite sure that Ron Dennis will put a stop to that game fairly quickly from the pits. He's probably allowed them to have 1 or 2 clear laps each to have a go at a time. And then he'll say, right, boys, slow it down again and let's be silly or do anything silly.
Yeah, Senna's fastest lap that he's just done, 1 minute 27.264, is still half a second outside Alain Prost's all-time McLaren lap record. But there's no need for Senna to hurry with that 13-second lead ahead of Gerhard Berger as he goes down into the Rivazza for the 47th time in this 61-lap race. No change all the way down the leaderboard at the present moment. And the real interest for British viewers is that Mika Hakkinen and Julian Bailey are still 7th and 8th in the 2 Lotus Judd V8s.
Not only that, but they're pretty much in formation, and they're only 2 seconds behind Eric Van der Poel, who's in 6th place, and so a lot to go for the 2 Lotus drivers, and Senna does yet another fastest lap, but still not a lap record. But I should think enough to discourage his teammate Gerhard Berger from having a go.
There's Thierry Boutsen, who is in 9th place in the Ligier, and as you can see, he is right behind 8th place man Julian Bailey. And Thierry Boutsen has been a pretty downcast Belgian all through this season thus far, because he was ejected from the Williams team last year in favour of the returning Nigel Mansell, hardly surprisingly from Williams' point of view. And all that was left for Thierry Boutsen was to go to Ligier with the Lamborghini engine. The Ligier has been rather unkindly dubbed the Ligier Route Master, because as you can see, it is an extremely burly, tubby motor car. There's Roberto Moreno, 4th position. And that is Eric Thomas. Going round the outside of the Lotus. And going through, so both the Ligier Lamborghinis are still running in the race, and that's more than most of the teams can say. Both the McLarens still running, of course. One of the Tyrrells is out, that of Nakajima, and now the other one, Modena. Both the Williams are out. Both the Brabhams are still running. Neither of the footwork Porsche cars started, because Michele Alboreto, who had hurt himself here at Imola, just wasn't able to qualify any more than his teammate Alex Caffey was. Both the Lotus cars are still running, and only one of the Leighton House cars is still running in the race, that of Mauricio Gugelmin, who is in 11th place. Nelson Piquet has long since disappeared for Benetton, although Moreno is still holding that 3rd position. Only one of the Dellaras started, that of JJ Leto, who is in 4th position and looking as though he's going to score his first World Championship points. JJ Leto, who started racing for the Onyx team last year. Martini is still running for Minardi, but Morbidelli has disappeared a long time ago. Both the Ligier still running, as I said. Both the Ferraris out right at the beginning of the race, crossed before it even started. Both, sadly, the Lola Fords of Gerard Larousse's team out, and the Jordans are both out of the race too. Senna making it a demonstration which the Italian crowd are not the least bit interested in watching. It's been not without a certain amount of cynical humour that every time Ayrton Senna has appeared out on the circuit, he has been booed and hissed and derided by the Italian crowd, who obviously want Ferrari to win. Although Senna said when I spoke to him yesterday that he thought that he'd had a much better reception from the Italians this year, which gives you an indication that he hasn't had a very good one in the past. And that's his teammate Gerhard Berger, who has gone round a bit quicker the previous lap than Senna, but Senna's demonstrated 2 laps in succession that anything Berger can do, he can do better.
Yes, the Italians do tend to harbour a little bit of friendly and good-humoured antipathy for any driver who beats Ferrari. I remember it happening to me. I remember having things thrown at me when I retired from a race at Monza and was walking back to the pits through the catch fencing, but it is done largely in a good-natured way and with some humour. It's just a rather quaint way of having a good day out. And the Lotuses have been locked together for most of the race. They're in a private battle, but it isn't just a private battle, because they have Van der Poel and Boutsen still in close proximity, and they've got a very much of a 4-car race going on.
Yes, and Comas, of course, in the other Ligier that we've been looking at, is actually a lap behind them. He's pretty close to them on the circuit, but both the 2 Lotuses that we're looking at now, with Mika Hakkinen in front of Julian Bailey, are a lap ahead of Eric Comas. And it's still on lap 51 in this 61-lap race, with Senna again having speeded up in response to Gerhard Berger's previous slightly quicker lap, now going faster than his teammate. Senna is going faster than Berger. And still Moreno hanging on in 3rd position. Very, very good for the enormously popular little Brazilian, Roberto Moreno, who created such a sensation when he finished 2nd in the Japanese Grand Prix, his first drive for Benetton last year. And then he went on to do extremely well in Australia, finishing just outside the points. And it looks as though it's going to be 4 points for Roberto Moreno at the present moment, as the Ligier of Thierry Boutsen in 7th place bears down on Eric van der Poel's Lamborghini. Van der Poel, 29 years old, comes from Brussels, like Thierry Boutsen. 3 Belgians in this race, the other one Bertrand Gachot, although some people say he's French, some people say he's Belgian, but for the purposes of officialdom, he's Belgian.
And I saw a little bit of smoke or steam or something coming from the back of Bootson's car then, but we are relatively near the end of the race there. You'll see it just puffing a little bit, maybe just an engine breather above the gearbox. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. And the two Lotuses, yes, it's definitely smoking. It's getting worse, I think. The Lotus is only just out of sight behind those two. A couple of seconds away only. And there's Hakkinen in the background there that's coming into the complex. There's Van der Poel and Butson exit it. Now, Moreno. There's Roberto Moreno. Moreno appears to be in trouble, and Leto is right behind him, and he's been going backwards, and he would appear to be having some sort of mechanical drama because he's slowed right down, and he's not going to hold Leto off for long.
And I suspect the problem that Roberto Moreno has obviously got is a gearbox problem. The Benetton Ford has got a new transverse gearbox. They had a lot of problems with it in practice, both Piquet and Moreno, and it rather looks to me from the way that the Brazilian is driving that he's got a recurrence of that problem. And JJ Leto is not only about, if he finishes this race, to finish where he is now, not only about to score a World Championship point, but also to be on the podium in third position with 4 points. And it's a long, long time since Dallara have been there. They failed to score a single point last year. And it's not going to be long now before the swooping JJ Leto in the scarlet and white Dallara goes past Roberto Moreno, 25-year-old JJ Leto from Espoo in Finland. There he goes.
Yes, and you can hear the misfire then from Moreno's car, unless that was somebody else, but I heard a misfire go past us. We can't see anything out of our window here. We can't see the track. We can only see the monitor, which is fair enough, because that's all you can see at home. But we can't even peep out of the window and see what's going on.
Incidentally, just as a bit of background information, we call him JJ Leto, but his real name is Jyrki Järvi Leto, and he says it's too complicated for English people to say, so he calls himself JJ Leto, and he's one of several drivers because Ayrton Senna is actually Ayrton Senna da Silva, and Nelson Piquet is actually Nelson Piquet Sotomayor.
And a little triumph for Gerhard Berger, because Berger has now just clipped Ayrton Senna's fastest lap, and I'm sure that will make him extremely happy, give him a bit of a lift. The only trouble is Senna is liable to get a message about that over the radio and then be beastly and respond.
Still not a lap record, 1:27.1 compared with Alain Prost 1:26.8. And Senna, I'm sure, as James has said, will respond because Senna always has to be fastest in every practice session, including the warm-up on Sunday. Ideally to put up the fastest lap and certainly to win the race, as now he's coming up to catch and lap again Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier. He's already lapped him twice, and Boutsen is in 7th place. And the race order on lap 53 out of 61 as we run down towards the end of the 1991 San-Marino Grand Prix is Ayrton Senna leading Gerhard Berger, who is closing but not nearly fast enough by 12.6 seconds. The McLaren Honda V12s first and second. JJ Leto in the Dallara Judd V10, and that's wonderful for John Judd, who is the extremely popular Northamptonshire engine designer and builder, who's got both V8 and V10 engines in this race. And I'm just checking my memory, I don't think that Judd has finished on the podium before, but certainly not the Judd V10. Roberto Moreno down to 4th, but he was a lap ahead of Martini, who is in 5th place. So if Roberto Moreno can keep going, he may well finish in fourth position and in the points for Benetton in the first race for the B191. Martini will be breaking Minardi's points duck, which existed all through last season. They scored no points, got the Ferrari V12 engine, have made a lot of aerodynamic changes since the Brazilian Grand Prix, and they seem to be paying off. And Martini has said if he doesn't get points this year, he's going to retire. So it looks as though he won't be doing that. Van der Poel, another newcomer in a new car, in the points in sixth position. Thierry Boutsen just out of them. The two Lotuses of Bailey and Häkkinen, 8th and 9th, albeit lapped 3 times. Gugelmin also lapped 3 times, is 10th. Mark Blundell is in 11th place in the Brabham Yamaha. Comas is still going 12th. 3 laps down in the Ligier Lamborghini. Martin Brundle is 4 laps down, so 13 out of the 26 starters are running, therefore 13 have retired, and Gerhard Berger has put up the fastest lap.
Yes, and Martin Brundle, it should be said, was involved with Mansell on that first lap, Chimozel, and he made contact with Mansell's car and had to go to the pits for a steering oil to be changed, which would account for losing time, and Gerhard Berger, new fastest lap of 1 minute 26.531. That must be threatening the lap record, and that is a new lap record. So, he's being allowed to have a bit of fun. Let's see if in the remaining laps, we've got a few more of them, whether Senna will be allowed to have a go at it.
Well, let's stir up a bit of controversy by hypothesising that Senna, you remember what happened in Phoenix, when unbeknown to us, Ayrton Senna had gearbox trouble, and Riccardo Patrese was reeling him in and only just failed to win because in Brazil, because he too had gearbox trouble. I'm talking about the second race of the year. I wonder, we'll watch this gap very carefully indeed. It was 9 seconds on lap 55, 9.7 to be exact. And if it's a lot less than that, the next time they go through, it may be that Ayrton Senna has got a problem. Well, here is Gerhard Berger going through anyway. 9.7 seconds was the gap. And just to prove me totally wrong, it's now 11.2 seconds because Senna has gone round 1.5 seconds faster than his teammate. No problem for Ayrton then. Lap 57 out of 61. Senna, McLaren leads Berger, McLaren, and there is the Austrian Gerhard Berger. Ex-ATS, ex-Benetton, ex-Ferrari, now with McLaren on his way to second place.
Yes, and while we weren't watching, Boutsen, you remember that there was a bit of smoke coming from the back of Boutsen's car, and he has dropped back, and the two Lotuses are now ahead of Boutsen. Apparently his car was sounding rough. It's difficult, as I say, we can't see out of the window, we hear the noise, but unless somebody checks for us, we don't know who it is who's sounding rough. But that moves Julian Bailey, who's now ahead of Mika Häkkinen, up into 7th place and just outside the points.
Roberto Moreno out of the race, very definitely, with flame licking out of the back of the Benetton. And the race, the real race at the present moment, is that between Julian Bailey and Mika Häkkinen, who've been just lapped by Ayrton Senna for 7th position. They're virtually together.
And it's now for 6th position, of course, because with Moreno out, that moves Julian Bailey into the points, and that will be a tremendous moment of excitement for him. But he'll have to battle his teammate Mika Häkkinen, who's right behind him. He'll have to battle him to maintain that to the end.
This is lap 58, and it's Senna leading Berger. We know that. Leto is third. We know that. Roberto Moreno is out, so up to 4th position goes Pierluigi Martini. Up to 5th goes Van der Poel. Up to 6th goes Bailey in the points. 7th is Häkkinen. Boutsen dropping back, so Gugelmin will now be in 9th position. Mark Blundell 10th, 3 laps down. Comas and Brundle. And there are now only 12 running out of the 26 who started, with Roberto Moreno retiring there in the Benetton Ford while the marshals get his car out of the way. And Gerhard Berger has reduced the gap to Ayrton Senna to 11.2 seconds, but of course it was less than that a few laps earlier. And Senna is coming up now to lap the Ligier Lamborghini the smiling Ayrton Senna in the insert. He's going to be having a lot more to smile about soon, because this is the Brazilian's 29th Grand Prix victory coming up in his 113th Grand Prix, out of which he started in pole position an incredible 55 times. By far the best record since the World Championship started. That's the Ferrari mechanics. Looks as though they're packing up to go home already. Indeed they are. That's exactly what they're doing. Clearing their equipment, their computers and monitors off the pit wall into the garage to put into the truck and take them back to Maranello.
And Julian Bailey and Mika Hakkinen are right up now with Eric van der Poel, who is in 5th place. So the two young Lotus drivers now chasing hard for de Poel's fifth place.
And we're on lap 59. This and 2 more to go. Senna coming up to Eric Comas in the lead here, who is in 12th position, to lap the Frenchman, the Formula 3000 champion of 1990, for the 4th time. So Senna will be going through now to start his 60th and last lap but one in this 191-mile race. All the races have to be 200 miles or 2 hours, whichever is the sooner, depending on the number of laps. And Senna is going through now, 59 laps completed. I'm just waiting to see Gerhard Berger go through to tell you how, well, he's got much closer. He's only 5.3 seconds behind now. Out of the race goes Maurizio Gugelmin. What rotten luck for, well, that means 6 failures to finish out of 6 starts for the Leighton House Ilmore team, with Maurizio Gugelmin failing to finish. Now, there is Ayrton Senna, and Berger, as I just told you, has got the gap down to 5 seconds. Leto is 3rd. Martini is 4th. Van der Poel 5th. Then, right behind him, Bailey and Hakkinen in 6th and 7th places. Here's Senna.
And Mika Hakkinen has moved past Julian Bailey with his personal fastest lap of the race, up into 6th place. So the two Lotus drivers, they've been swapping places right throughout this Grand Prix, and now it's Hakkinen's turn to have a go at Van der Poel, who's a couple of seconds in front.
You saw Senna bully his way past Eric Comas, and there's the reason. Look at Gerhard Berger. They're coming up to start the last lap now, and Gerhard Berger is really flying, really going for it. Lap 61 coming up, that's the last lap of the race, and Gerhard Berger started this lap 5 seconds behind Ayrton Senna. You can see that it's a lot less than that now. Has Senna got a problem? If he hasn't got a problem, he's once again being astonishingly cool. I said that at Brazil. I said that Senna was pacing himself to victory. I didn't know that he had a gearbox problem. I didn't know that Patrese, who was catching him, has got a gearbox problem. But look at this. Gerhard Berger bearing down on Ayrton Senna as they go up to the Tosa for the last time. Now they're climbing to the Piratella. 155 miles an hour, building to 190 miles an hour as they go round the left-hander, which they're approaching now. Senna. Berger, it's going to be very close, but even if Berger catches Senna, I don't see how the Austrian can possibly get past the Brazilian, because Senna only has to hold the racing line, and Gerhard Berger will not be able to get through. Is it another gearbox problem for Ayrton Senna?
No, we listened as he went past. He went right up through the gearbox, so he certainly had all the gears as he came past the pits just now.
So it is, maybe he is just rubbing it in.
Yes, he was just, I think, slowing up, even if he had a problem with Berger moving up and getting excited. But Senna was really just judging it in. After all, they haven't been racing each other for a very long time, apart from the little fun and games they had with fastest lap. And I'm glad to see, I think that finally stayed with Berger as Senna comes in for yet another fine win.
Across the line and win the San-Marino Grand Prix of 1991, his 3rd win in 3 races this year. Maximum points, therefore, in each of them. 30 points, Ayrton Senna. Gerhard Berger finishes 2nd to get 6 points, and bring his total up to 10. And Van der Poel is retiring on the last lap. And that is a crushing blow for the unfortunate Lamborghini team, because they had the chance of finishing in the points.
But that, of course, moves Julian Bailey. It should be, if he gets round up into the points, as it does. And so the two Lotuses finish 5th and 6th, and really bad luck, as you say, on Van der Poel. But my guess would be that he's run out of petrol with that big thirsty V12 engine.
And JJ Leto will come home in 3rd position, but it gives you an indication of just how far ahead the two McLarens were, because Senna and Berger have completed the race and are out of the cars, and we are still, even now, waiting for JJ Leto to come home in 3rd position, and the seconds have been ticking away, and he's still not through. Nor, of course, is Martini, who will finish behind him in 4th place. But are both the Lotuses going to finish in 5th and 6th places? Well, Pierluigi Martini has come through in 4th position, and he was a lap behind JJ Leto, who is going to finish 3rd. Senna wins the San-Marino Grand Prix from Gerhard Berger. Maximum points for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship to extend their enormous lead over Ferrari and the others. JJ Leto finishes 3rd to score his first World Championship.
Devant Comas et Brundle. C'est fort dommage, alors que les deux McLaren sont au parc fermé. Parc de vérification, rejoint par une Ligier. Premier Senna, 2e Berger, 3e Leto, 4e Martini, 5e Hakkinen, 6e Bellé. 3 points pour l'équipe Lotus. 7e Boutsen, 8e Blundell, 9e Van de Poel, il sera classé. 10e Comas, 11e Brundle. Les deux McLaren Honda ont laissé tout le monde sur place, mais vous avez le classement du championnat du monde. Senna 30 points, et oui, 3 x 10 égale 30. Berger 10 points, Prost 9 points, Patrese 6, Piquet 6, Leto 4. Martini et Modena 3, Hakkinen et Nakajima 2, Suzuki Alesi 1.
Jean-Louis, après la joie chez Dallara, l'abattement chez Lamborghini. Après la joie chez Dallara, disais-je, l'abattement chez Lamborghini, où vraiment on n'arrive pas à croire à ce qui a pu arriver dans le dernier tour à Eric Van de Poel.
Et oui, nous pensons ici à une panne de carburant, Eric Bail. Le classement du championnat du monde des constructeurs: McLaren Honda 40, Ferrari 10, William Renault, Benetton Ford 6, Tyrrell Honda 5, Dallara Judd 4, Minardi et Lotus Judd 3, Lola 1, et tout à l'heure dans le classement que nous ont passé les officiels du circuit d'Imola, il manquait Bellé qui avait marqué 1 point. Alors, une toute petite page de publicité et on se retrouve à Imola dans quelques instants.
It was first time for me racing in a wet condition F1. It was unbelievable. It was, you couldn't see absolutely anything. Even to the next car in front of you have a red light, you couldn't see that.
Retour au Grand Prix de Saint-Marin avec le podium. 1 Senna, 2 Berger à gauche et 3 Leto à droite sur votre écran. Senna qui vient d'engranger sa 29e victoire en Grand Prix, 3 sur 3 depuis le début de la saison, c'est le hat-trick avec des gestes de congratulation avec Berger et puis Leto très satisfait, très heureux, on le comprend, de monter sur ce podium en compagnie, en aussi brillante compagnie devrais-je dire. Leto qui vendredi matin entre 8h et 9h eh bien, devait se préqualifier avec sa Dallara Judd. C'est quand même un magnifique résultat. Un Finlandais qui a été pilote d'essai chez Ferrari, qui est un ami et protégé de Keke Rosberg, comme Hakkinen, ça c'est la filière finlandaise, appelons-la comme ça. Et la bagarre au champagne, toujours sympathique, oui la caméra. Voilà, à Leto, il n'a pas cette habitude-là en Formule 1 de prendre du champagne plein les yeux. Un Grand Prix de Saint-Marin qui nous a valu un cavalier seul de McLaren Honda. Sortie de piste très rapide des 2 Ferrari et puis il y a eu ce que j'appellerais l'épisode Van de Poel qui était en train de marquer 1 point puis 2 points et qui est tombé en panne à combien, Patrick, 2 km de l'arrivée?
Oh, même pas, c'était sur la portion du retour, il devait rester à peu près 1 km vers l'eau.
Van de Poel avec sa Lamborghini qui est comme les Dallara Judd soumise aux préqualifications. Alors que je crois Eric Bale maintenant est en compagnie de Thierry Boutsen. Eric, vous m'entendez?
Oui, je vous reçois Jean-Louis. Thierry Boutsen, 7e place, c'est peut-être la plus mauvaise, mais en même temps c'est encourageant pour les Ligiers.
Oui, parce que j'ai le moteur qui a eu un problème à 10 tours de l'arrivée. J'ai perdu beaucoup de temps, je perdais à peu près 10 secondes au tour à ce moment-là. J'ai perdu 2 ou 3 places, j'aurais pu terminer 4e ou 5e de cette course. C'est malheureux, mais c'est comme ça.
Donc vous avez constaté énormément d'améliorations, le travail à payer, peut-être aussi les restructurations dans l'équipe?
Oui, le travail commence à payer, mais il y a encore beaucoup de chemin à faire. On ne voit encore rien de ce qui s'est passé, il n'y a encore rien qui en ressort. Parce que la voiture est toujours pareille à ce qu'elle était auparavant, mais ça s'améliore beaucoup dans l'écurie et ça c'est fantastique.
Merci Thierry Boutsen.
Et nous retrouvons le circuit d'Imola avec, comme vous le comprenez, des tifosi éminemment calmes. Il n'y a pas de Ferrari sur le podium, il n'y a pas de Ferrari à l'arrivée. Il n'y a pas de pilote Ferrari classé. Alain Prost sorti de piste dans le tour de formation et Jean Alesi quelques instants plus tard, alors que là, nous en sommes aux interviews des vainqueurs. Et que le caméraman de la Foca est en train de donner le classement aux Brésiliens. Allez, le Brésil, voici le drapeau. Le classement à Senna, que Senna lui demandait. Patrick, impressionnante les McLaren.
Impressionnante, oui. Pour regretter que les conditions atmosphériques aient un petit peu perturbé le déroulement de cette course par des sorties de route, donc vraiment imprévues en début de course. Je crois qu'on aurait assisté à une superbe bagarre. Nous étions tous de cet avis. Un petit peu décevant, bien entendu, pour tout le monde, mais je crois que ce n'est que partie remise. La bagarre pour les qualifications à Monaco sera terrible et je crois que cette course sera, même si Senna est très très fort sur ce circuit, la course sera certainement encore très belle. Il prend de l'avance au championnat, mais ceci dit, une victoire c'est 10 points. Et les chances des Williams, Renault et les chances des Ferrari ne sont pas toutes encore perdues.
Avant que ne débutent les interviews, oui, les pilotes ont demandé des serviettes pour s'essuyer, non pas de la sueur, mais du champagne. Oui.
Jean-Louis Moncey, on est revenu là à Paris et on va discuter bien sûr de ce Grand Prix avec Philippe Alliot et Bernard Spindler. Philippe, on attendait un retour de Ferrari ou des Williams, Renault, et finalement c'est McLaren toujours plus et Ferrari encore moins.
Comme l'a très justement dit Patrick Tambay tout à l'heure, maintenant il faut attendre Monaco. Je crois que les qualifications seront très importantes. On devrait assister parce que c'est vrai que si les voitures avaient été là, les Williams, les Ferrari, etc., on aurait assisté sûrement à un autre Grand Prix. Alors maintenant, je crois que tout est partie remise et il faut attendre Monaco.
Bernard nous disait c'est de la Philippe. Aux États-Unis, on n'aurait pas couru là-dessus.
Et non, tout à fait. Aux États-Unis, on refuse de courir quand il pleut. Et là, c'est vrai que si on avait reculé ce départ d'environ une demi-heure, parce que sachant que justement, ça allait probablement pas durer, on aurait assisté sûrement à un très beau Grand Prix. Maintenant, avec des scies, vous savez, on fait plein de choses. On a assisté à ce Grand Prix. C'est le Grand Prix des occasions manquées. Je crois que malheureusement, je regrette beaucoup pour Guy Ligier qui n'a pas marqué un petit point avec Thierry Boutsen. Vous savez, je le répète, l'importance de ce petit point est primordiale pour plein d'équipes. Gigi Leto qui, le matin à 8h, doit aller se préqualifier. Moi, je sais ce que c'est, je l'ai fait. Et qui est aujourd'hui sur le podium, c'est des choses absolument incroyables, exceptionnelles. Et donc, c'est un peu le Grand Prix des occasions manquées pour Larousse, pour Ligier, pour ceux qui n'ont pas pris le petit point, comme c'était le cas pour Lotus, pour Dallara. Et puis pour Minardi, qui eux aussi en avaient bien besoin.
My main problem was only the engine. The car was not perfect because it was a compromise between wet and dry, but it was good. And my problem was really the engine with the oil pressure. Somehow we had the problem with the oil pressure. I think we had this problem this morning already, and it gave a problem again in the afternoon. And it was more than 30 laps with the oil light flashing. And I dropped the revs immediately on the shifting and also on the straight, start to lift on the straight, to not have much revs, and it seemed to work good to at least stabilize the engine. And then I was just trying to control myself with Gerhard, and fortunately for me, unfortunately for him, he also had some problems, and then it was possible for me to slow down and still maintain some gap, and then we both were able to finish first and second.
In the beginning of the race, it was very, very difficult conditions. I mean, starting from the 16th place, there was a lot of smoke and everything, and you couldn't see really nothing. And I was just taking easy, and then when we changed the slicks, it was getting better and better, the car, and I was just going for it.